Greetings! Welcome to the Sunday show. I'm your host, Forrest Valkai, and I am joined today by Eric of Skeptics and Scoundrels. How are you doing today?
Hey, Forrest, I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
All right, on. I literally just woke up and sat down right here. My day has been. Yeah, this is the first thing I've done. I brushed my teeth, I put on decent clothing, and I sat down to do a show. Good morning to you as well. I didn't realize that both of our lives were in shambles. I do have a lot of good news, though, to start us off before we get into the show. A couple of things everybody needs to know. Number one is that if you like this show and you like other shows like this show here on this channel, you can support this channel by joining our Patreon or becoming a channel member. And if you do those things, then you're going to get access to a special new podcast that Jimmy is putting out right now called Live on the Line, or Live on the Line as it really is, because we just live here now, because the show is that he just calls us at random times during our lives, when unscheduled, unprompted, called me in the shower, and we'll just start asking us questions. And it's recorded. And then that whole thing becomes the podcast show, us trying to answer these questions. And if we get the questions right, then Jimmy picks a random patron to win a prize. And I believe they get, even if we get them wrong, they get like a discount or something like that on some merch from our merch store. So it's a good deal all around for the patrons, bad deal all around for us. And if you're a patron, you get the show immediately. I believe if you're a channel member, you have to wait like a week to watch it. But definitely check that out if you're interested in seeing more of us, especially us being like off guard and uncomfortable. Check that out. It's a lot of fun. Other things, we got several other shows on this channel that you should check out. Coming up right after this show at 7 p.m., we've got the Sunday Show After Dark with Paul and John. Then on Monday, we've got Skeptalk with John and Aron. Then we've got Tuesday, Chewed Gum with Eve and Alyssa. On Wednesday, we've got The Hang Up with Matt and Derek from Mythvision. Then we've got Thursday is TACIS with Katy and Josie. The Transatlantic Call-In Show, a great show to call into if you have questions about trans people, for trans people, because we get a lot of calls about trans people and for trans people on all of our shows that we, explain. But if you actually want to talk to a real trans person, that's the place to do it. On Friday, we've got a Cuz I Wanna coming up with John and Godless Granny. And then a Sunday from now, the next Sunday, a week from today, we've got the Sunday show again, the same show you're watching at this point, and that's hosted by Seth Andrews and fucking me. So check into that. And then the After Dark that day is going to be Matt and Erika, the Gut Sick Gibbon. How cool is that? So you've got an amazing lineup of shows. Like I would actually watch every single one of those. That sounds like a lot of fun. So check that out. Last but not least, to the amazing mod that we have that bought it, I want to let you know this fucking thing came in. Look at this.
It's the Tooth Bunny.
The Tooth Bunny is coming for your teeth, y'all. He will get your teeth. It is a matter of if, it's a
matter of when.
Exactly. So brush your teeth to keep them in your head for as long as you can, because the Tooth Bunny's coming, and he's going to take those teeth. And if they're rotted and easy to pull out, he's coming for you first. Somebody else, like we did that whole bit, somebody bought me the Tooth Bunny mask, and then also somebody sent me the full box set of the Bunnicula books. Why? I love it. Thank you very much. I have some nieces, but I think I'm going to send these too. That's great. We have my wife. We have 10 nieces and nephews, and I've got some young ones that I think are going to love those. So thank you so much for your amazing gifts.
I'm in the same boat. I have a ton of nieces and nephews on my wife's side, and like maybe like 3 on mine. So yeah,
I've
familiar with
none.
that.
I've got none on my side. I've only got my wife's massive family. Somebody also made me this. They drew a little Australopithecus skull. Isn't that cute? This is going in the drawer. I've got like I've got a cabinet full of fan mail and things, and like this is absolutely going in there. Love that shit.
I don't normally keep around pictures of skulls, but that's cool.
I mean, there's enough of them right above me here. Oh man. I love it so much. Thank you so much for your kind letters and your gifts and your cool surprises that you guys send me every month. It's very, very sweet. I check that box as often as I can, and there's always something fun inside. So that really genuinely means a lot to me. With that, we've already got some great calls lined up. Do you have a preference on where you'd like to start? Or do you have something else you wanted to throw out before we begin?
No, I got nothing to really talk about other than whatever our callers want to talk about. So yeah, let's just roll right into it.
Sweet chicken. All right. So we're going to jump on to Max, pronouns he, him, calling in from Nope, not elongated because that starts with an E. That would be iridescent. Yes. Iridescent langoustines. Glowing lobsters, y'all. We got Max calling in, who says that Catholicism is the most useful religion to believe in because the Pope is independent of state control, and Catholic doctrine is largely humanitarian and pro-life. I have an issue with literally every part of that, but let's get into it. Max, you are on the line. How are you doing today?
Great. Salam alaikum, Eric. Salam alaikum, Forrest. I'm doing great.
Peace be with you as well.
Ukrainians have been smashing Russians. It's a great day for freedom. And I would like to say that my argument is that being Catholic specifically, as opposed to Protestants, is superior because we can all agree that religion is a useful tool of social control. It can be used for both good and bad. And in the past, it has been used, and now it's being used by, for example, the Russian Orthodox Church, which is a state-funded, KGB-controlled entity that propagandizes war and encourages people to die. On the other hand, Catholicism, being ruled by a pope from the Vatican, which is its own country, but which doesn't have large control of people, it makes it so that he can be more like objective because he's not out to be influenced by like Italy or whatever, any country, and rulers must be kept in check by a power that's above themselves. Maybe it's constitution, but in countries with like weak rule of law, like Russia, Belarus, Nazi Germany, USSR, they can just do whatever they want and oppress people and deny them human rights. However, in the case of like a really religious population, like for example Poland or Chile, which is the two examples I would like to provide, like religious people, they probably believe in God more than they believe in government. So, and Catholics specifically, the Pope is like the ultimate authority, whatever, and they must be like obeyed. And in the past, we have seen in Nazi Germany, the Pope in 1930s issued like it's called encyclical, where he said that this like whole racist Nazi ideology is wrong. It's wrong to like idolize the state. And then further, like after the war in Hungary and like against Soviet Union, the Pope was protesting like the mistreatment of the workers and stuff. And these had like I feel big effects. For example, in Poland, John Paul II.
Hold on a second, because you've given us a lot here, and like we're gonna address every little thing, and so like if you talk for the whole time, then we're not gonna be able to address it. Couple of things. First of all, you like Eric? Do you want to start? Because I have several things. I don't want to run the whole thing. Just
sure. So I mean, is this an argument that it's just there's utility behind religion? Because I agree that there is, and you seem to be arguing that Catholicism has the most utility, and that somehow gives it value. I'm like, what's just kind of the general ultimate thrust of your points here? Because yeah, sure, we can nitpick over whether Catholicism does good or bad, how much control it allows certain individuals to exert over a large populace, and what potential good or bad that could come from that. I'm more concerned about whether things are true or not whether it's useful. So, what is the general thrust of this whole thing? Like, are you trying to tell us that Catholicism's good because it's got utility? It's good because you can control people with it? Is it better than others because you can control more people with it? Like, what's just one sentence is what's the general thrust of your point here?
That Catholicism is the best religion for advancement of social human rights and preservation of them.
That I would have a big issue with because
that's also a problem. So a couple of things right off the bat is I'm just going to summarize what you're saying. I can't dig through every little thing. You talked about how the Pope spoke out against Nazism, while also like they were the first treaty that the Nazis had was with the Catholic Church, and the Catholic doctrine of Jews being Christ killers was a big driver in Nazi Germany. So like the Nazis' persecution of the Jews wasn't entirely religious; it was largely ethnic as well. It was a racist thing. But to say that religion didn't have a major driving force in there is silly. And to say that the Catholic Church didn't play a part in that and didn't participate in that and didn't condone that is also crazy. Furthermore, you mentioned that the church has been spread around the world, and that there's places in like South America where they really trust the government or the religion more than even the government and everything. How was that religion spread around the world? Because it wasn't by sending out pamphlets. The Catholic Church was spread around the world largely by the sword, through genocide, through rape, through slavery, through murder, by forcing people to convert and killing them if they didn't. And even today, if a Catholic comes up to me and tries to convert me, I'm going to get a whole sermon on love and acceptance and tolerance and charity. If they go to the same exact sermon goes to a third world country, goes to some developing nation, to some poor person who lives on less than $1 a day, every bit of hellfire and brimstone and sin and disease and internal inherent corruption, all of that is being shared with them. So it is still using horrible methods to spread their message even today. Just not nearly as bad, but missionaries are still fucking bad. And then finally, you talked about how this is an independent state that isn't beholden to other governments. Well, I'm sorry, but that is also kind of part of the problem. The fact that they are a state and that they don't have to release their taxes to anybody, they don't tell anybody where their money goes, and they have massive golden cathedrals and thrones and scepters and obscene wealth that they absolutely use to hoard and to influence politics around the world is a problem. So just because they are independent of other governments does not mean that they are completely removed from other governments or that they are disinterested in other governments. They very are, and it's been a problem for a long time. So at the end of the day, what you've got here is a history of the Spanish Inquisition and alignment with Nazis leading up today to a self-contained theocracy, a government which has massive control in the world, even though it is a very small little country. You said they don't have control of a lot of people. They fucking do. And in the end, all you're saying is that, oh, it's good for social advancement. It's good for a society. It's good for human rights. It hasn't been for the past 2,000 years. It's been quite the opposite. This is the church that threatened to torture people to death if they studied science and talked about how the earth wasn't the center of the universe. They haven't been a bastion of human rights and progress forever. And now in the 21st century, when they're trying to remain relevant, they're trying to come out and say, oh, no, actually, we're super humanitarian and we're super good people and we do all these charity things. If they really give a damn about anybody, they would sell all the wealth that they have and do what Jesus told them to do and give it to the poor and live in poverty. But that's a whole other conversation. What is your response to all of that, Max?
So, of course, it was a lot of things you have said, and let's go down the list, starting from your first point. Of course, in the past, the Catholic Church and did many terrible things. However, we have to look at things as they are now. With the you've talked also about with the development of nationalism, the Catholic Church doesn't nearly have the same sort of, influence. We were fighting and spreading religion in 1500s, 1600s, and where people didn't think of themselves as, citizens of the state. They were like, subjects of some lord. So I find that.
Do you have us on do you have us on speakerphone or something? You're cutting in and out a lot.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's difficult to hear you.
Okay. My argument is that the material conditions society has, we have nationalism now as opposed to like sort of feudalism, where people were more loyal to their liege lords or to like their religion specifically, and I actually think, despite the, as you say, obscene wealth, and I would agree with that generally. The fact that the Vatican City is, by itself independent, not funded by, government donations, is a strength. It's not a weakness, because right now, I gave you an example, Russian Orthodox Church being a massive driver of war and these terrible things. However, because the Catholic Church is independent, it's not, no one can say to it, you need to promote this particular thing. It needs to cater to all of people on the world. And, I think most people in the world don't want war. They don't want, bad things to happen. They want like social progress. They want to help the poor, especially. And in that regard,
yeah,
useful.
The Catholic Church being an independent nation doesn't. I mean, sure, being independent maybe has its benefits, but it also allows it to get away with all kinds of stuff. Like we saw in World War II, how the Catholic Church supported Hitler and the Nazi Party. We see how the Catholic Church, since it's an internal nation, has its own private books and documents. They can hoard wealth. They can hide rampant child sex abuse amongst their ranks and just move folks around and to cover it all up. We can see things like we saw in Canada with certain Catholic schools. They have mass graves of Indigenous children.
Yep.
Even like the AIDS epidemic in 1990s and early 2000s in Africa, like just the Catholic Church's impedance of any efforts to get that under control by simply saying, yeah, condoms don't work. They threw so much fuel in the fire.
Yeah, Pope Benedict said that condoms help spread AIDS. He said it makes it worse. So actually feeding into the pandemic or the epidemic and telling people that yes.
Active disinformation from the Catholic Church. But here's the thing, Max. Here's the thing, Max. Hold on. Here's the thing, Max. You're saying that the Catholic Church can counter things like nationalism and can counter things, the other negatives you see in the world. But I don't see how you can counter bullshit with more bullshit. Yeah, nationalism, fascism, the lot of the stuff, injustices we see in the world, we can rightly call bullshit. It harms mankind. But I don't see how adding more of that to the pile somehow fixes things. I would much rather see robust, well thought out answers to those questions, ways to address those problems, rather than just superstition and simply saying, oh, well, these guys are independent. They have a supposedly benevolent leader, according to their papacy and their doctrines. This guy's led by God. He's infallible when it comes to decrees about doctrine and scripture. I don't see how any of that addresses our issue. I think it's just muddles and confuses the issue. It's better to just kind of just remove all that noise and start actually addressing real problems with real answers. Why does a religion have to be involved? Well, first of all, before we go into point by point, why does a religion have to be involved in the solution? Why can't we just simply say, screw religion, let's throw that out, let's come up with some real answers?
Because people are easily deceived by propaganda. People are very much influenced by media, example, Russia. Yeah.
So you're saying we must use deception and are you saying we must use deception and propaganda in order to address these problems? Because that's kind of what I'm hearing from that statement there.
I disagree that
you're saying, well,
Catholic Church. That I disagree that you. Okay. Are you saying that the Catholic Church having this progressive stance on issues is propaganda?
Because here's the thing: you can
say in Nazi Germany. I will say in Nazi Germany.
Yeah, I don't. Hold on. I don't agree that the Catholic Church has progressive stances on certain things. Like you can nitpick and say, yeah, these issues are progressive, and I can point to other issues and say these issues are regressive. It doesn't matter because it's all based on bullshit anyway. I don't.
It's pro-life,
what?
Humanitarian trying to. It's pro-life in the sense of protecting life or encouraging and not to kill people in that sense.
So you're basically talking about the abortion issue here?
No. I mean pro-life as in like actual, like being pro, helping orphans, being pro donating to like proper causes. Nothing.
Do non-religious organizations, Max? Can non-religious organizations and do non-religious organizations help the poor and help needy children?
It's much difficult to mobilize people to.
That's not the question.
Like
do they? Max, answer the question asked you.
Well,
do they?
Yeah, of course, but
okay, good. So that means we can help religion. We can help the needy. We can help children without religion. So why have the religion involved?
It's more effective to use religion as well.
Yes, because if you brainwash a bunch of people and tell them you have to do things this way, they'll do things that way instead of coming on their own free will, right?
The Catholic Church is like seen as this like big institution that wants good for the people, so the people naturally listen to it. Religiously.
Let me ask you two questions, Max. So, are you believe in the Catholic God, right? You believe in the God that you're talking about?
I'm not like I believe there's a God, and I choose that Catholic is the best type of God. I'm more of a deist myself.
Okay.
But are you Catholic? Are you Catholic though? Max, are you Catholic?
I think so.
Yes or no?
I think so.
You think so? Okay.
Okay.
All right.
What if another organization with the exact same policies and procedures and practices as the Catholic Church, the exact same systems and everything came along that just believed in a totally different God? They worship the devil. They worship whatever God you like the least. And they do all the same things. They have all the same social programs. They donate the same to charity. They talk about human life and how precious it is. All the same things that you're talking about here, but it's a different God. Do you still think that that is a great thing that we should be spreading around the world and that everyone should believe in?
In that situation, if it was Islam, I would be Muslim. To me, it's about like the effective, like the actual, tangible change in progress.
I'm asking you a direct question. If it was supporting a God you didn't believe in, would you change your religion to that other thing and believe in that other God?
I'm sure. I'm a deist. I think there's a God. It doesn't really matter what you call it.
Oh, so Max, so Max, hold on here. Let's clarify these answers then, because you just said you were Catholic, but by your answer, you don't actually believe in Catholic doctrine. You said you're a deist, and you consider yourself a Catholic because you think the Catholics have the biggest stick when it comes to handling world problems. If a different religion was more effective, say like Islam, or let's say like some type of Satanist organization, you would consider yourself a member of that organization, but not actually believe their tenets and doctrines. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so you don't care at all about, like, why are you using this label then? Why do you consider yourself a Catholic when you don't actually believe the doctrines, but you just simply like what they do? Like, this is
why
really
not just say,
why do you...
You could just say the world should take care of children and poor people more, and we'd agree.
Yeah.
We would agree, and I do think that, but the reality on the ground is that people believe religion and involve themselves with religion because they're selfish, because they want to be saved, maybe, much more readily than to like donate to these social causes on their own volition.
Max, you've said a couple of times that you think that humans are easily convinced by propaganda and that we need this structure, this organization to kind of direct people in the correct direction and to get them to do good things and make the world a better place. You have a very utilitarian worldview, very, very much, ends justify the means. But my question to you is, what is actually better? Not what is easier, but what is like more morally correct? Is it using the propaganda from the church to convince people of a religion that you even don't believe in, but just to convince people that there's this God and that they have to do these things, these ways, and live these ways and do these things, and just coerce them through brainwashing and bullshit rhetoric to be good people? Or is it more morally correct and better to educate people and give people control over their own lives, give them autonomy, give them an education, teach them about the world around them, teach them good morals and values, teach them science and literature and history so that they themselves, by their own free will, can be good people and charge their own path forward and overcome other obstacles and even be better than the Catholic Church?
Forrest, of course, it's all right, what you said, and I agree with it. But how much investment, how much time, how much dedication is needed to provide quality of education that people
So then you agree it would be a lot of time and investment, and maybe if our countries were give maybe like just 10%. Hold on, if our countries were to give just like maybe 10% of the budget they give to bombing people on the other side of the world to education, then we'd be there already. But that's not what I asked you. I asked you which is more morally correct, and it seemed that you agree that it's more morally correct to actually take care of people and educate them. So what you're actually saying here is, I want a better world, and it's just easier to lie to people and trick them into making one than it is having them build one for themselves. That is an evil proposition. It's a great, the end goal is beautiful, but the way that you get there is disgusting, Max.
Okay, yeah, you're all disgusted by what do you want? Like, people to say good things, but not have any like tangible good things on the ground progress? Or do you want...
I want people to be free and educated. I want people to be free and educated. And when that happens, they will be able to make a better world for themselves and each other. But religion, like the Catholic Church, in fact, I would say especially the Catholic Church, is a great big part of the reason why we're in the mess that we're in today, not a solution to it. So saying, hey, here's this thing that is raped and tortured and burned its way across the planet and caused undue suffering and misery and continues to do so today, but they have a pretty nice charity program, so I'm going to just indoctrinate everybody into this thing so that they can then make it a little bit shinier. And as long as this thing is doing the right thing, I support it. That is not only like evil, it's also just dangerous, because you need to remember what the Catholic Church did when they had the power and when they could get away with it. They were fucking horrible. And now that they're a little bit more in check, now they're behaving a little bit better. So no, I don't buy into your rhetoric that we just need to give them more souls and allow people to be indoctrinated into their bullshit in hopes that they continue to behave okay. I think that people will behave better than the mediocre bullshit coming out of the Catholic Church, and also won't protect pedophiles like the Catholic Church does if they are educated and free. So yes, it is a longer thing, and yes, it's a more expensive thing at first. It wouldn't be in the long term, but I think my way is a whole hell of a lot better, Max. With that, we're going to move on to the next call, because we've been on this one for about 20 minutes, and all you've said is either things that flatly aren't true or things that are like grossly inappropriate. Have an awesome rest of your day, Max.
Yeah. And I'll put my little period at the end of that sentence there. So I know, Max, we just disconnected you, so I'm not going to try to beat you up or anything. But Max, you just made a complaint that, hey, without religion, we're just going to have people around not helping out others. And we already have that with religion in place. Like, not every religious person in a church or even the Catholic Church is going to do things for other people. So we're always going to have people sitting around giving platitudes, saying things, and not actually doing anything. And that's fine. I don't expect every single person on the planet to be doing something. But between our two worlds, mine is a world where that happens without the bullshit, and the religious world is where that happens with the bullshit. And, Max, I mean, by your admission, you don't actually believe the doctrines. We can sit here and just argue all day over how do we measure the effectiveness and the benefit of the Catholic Church on the world, whether we should have those benefits along with the detriments that we also mentioned at the beginning of the call. Like, at that point, we're not really talking about anything objective. We're talking about subjective things. We could argue about that all day and get really nowhere. So thank you for your comments on that. But I mean, I would much rather see a world where we are standing on our own merits and not using crutches like religion, not using panaceas like, eternal life or the stick of hellfire to get people in line, to get them to do things. I think humanity can grow up and beyond that. Religion's that pacifier that just needs to come out of the mouth someday, and we need to just grow up. So, thanks for the comments, though.
We still got some lines open for theists. We've got several theists on the line that we're going to be talking to. But if you're a theist, if you believe anything even close to what Max believes, or if you just believe in a God and you want to talk about it, the number on the bottom of the screen there is 720-619-2288. Or you can use the link in the description to call in via the web if you're in another country. We're going to move on, though. We've got John, with no pronouns given, calling in from oscillating hippopotamus. Just turning back and forth. What? Who wants to talk about street epistemology? John, you are on the line. How are you doing today?
Hello. How are you today?
I'm doing really well, man. How are you?
Doing good, John.
Good. I seem to be coughing, so if I start coughing, I'll hit the mute button. Try to hit the mute button.
I appreciate that.
Thanks.
But I was listening to Matt the other day, and he said that he was interested in only the truth, and he was talking about street epistemology. And I went on the internet and was looking up street epistemology, and the first name that came up was Anthony Magnabosco.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching one of his interviews with a couple of Mormons. And I was wondering if we could engage. I was wondering if we could engage in that today.
Sure. So I actually dabble a bit in street epistemology. It's one of the things that fascinates me about, the world of conversation. And I think I've also seen that same video of that Anthony Magnabosco talking to those Mormons. Is that it's like a picnic table in a park, right? Where he's got like 3 or 4 Mormon missionaries there, and he's giving them questions. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. So sure, if you want to engage in street epistemology, yeah, absolutely. So I'm assuming you want us to be the street epistemologists, and we're questioning you, or do you want to do it towards us? How do you want to play this?
I wanted to turn the tables.
All right, go ahead. Lay some questions on us.
Okay, Eric, have you ever lied?
I have.
I'm sorry, John. Just out of curiosity, are you about to give us the Ray Comfort version of quote street epistemology, where you say, "Have you ever lied? So does that mean you're a liar? Is lying a sin? And then have you ever thought about somebody with anger, and that means Jesus said that means that you're a murderer? And have you ever looked at anyone with lust, and Jesus said that means that you're an adulterer? And if I judge you by the 10 Commandments today, are you going to go to heaven or hell?" Are you doing that whole script right now?
That's exactly what came to my mind.
This is minor version.
Sorry?
Forrest, have you ever lied?
No, I'm asking you, are you doing that same Ray Comfort script right now? Is that where we're going? Because we can skip to the end. We've already heard it.
No.
Okay. So yes, I have told a lie before.
Let's give him a little leeway here. Let's give him like 3 or 4 questions. We'll see where it starts going. But John, I mean, in the good spirit of street epistemology, we're going to assume you're not going to try to pull a Ray Comfort on us. But yes, I have lied, and Forrest has lied.
Yes, I have. Yep.
Okay. Have you ever known a person that hasn't lied?
No.
Yes.
You knew a person who
a one day
never
old baby. A one day old baby has never lied.
Go, yeah.
I'm going to be really pedantic. Yeah.
That's
okay.
Hardly a person.
I guess I'm wondering as far as adults are concerned.
Yeah, I figure. Yeah. Okay, no.
Yeah. Okay. I'll try to answer your questions as you are probably intending them. No, I can't think of anybody who has never lied once in their entire life.
I know. Doesn't make it an impossibility.
It doesn't make it an impossibility, but I don't know anybody who's never lied at least once in their life. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. There's plenty of people that I know of that I don't know for sure they've ever lied. I don't have tangible proof, but I'm assuming because they're a person, they've probably told a lie in their life. It's kind of a human thing to do. Yeah.
Oh, and John, I'm assuming when you say lie, you're meaning purposefully state a falsehood, right? Purposely, conscientiously, I'm saying something that's false. Not I'm accidentally saying something that's false. I am purposefully saying something's false. Okay, go ahead.
Well, either way, I guess.
Well, I think it's an important distinction. It's a big distinction there because motive is a big part of that. Because I can say something out of ignorance that turns out to be false, and you can call that a lie under certain contexts, but it's a different lie than me actually telling you something false on purpose in order to mislead you. Those are 2 very different concepts. So either we stick with just one lie, which is maybe perhaps just saying something false on purpose with the intention to mislead, or you should probably call lies and misinformation what they are, lies and misinformation, and keep those separate so we don't get them muddled and confused. But anyway, continue.
Can you think of a person that wouldn't have any reason to lie?
Can I think of a person who wouldn't have any reason to lie?
Like in any scenario in general, or just like overall? Like,
yeah,
overall.
Because that's a really difficult question to answer. Like, I mean, so I can think of a person who has no motive to lie about anything at the moment, but all of a sudden they're thrust into a situation where lying is probably the moral thing to do. For instance, if you are a citizen in Germany in the 1940s and you're just living your life, you're being honest, you have a family, everything's fine. All of a sudden the SS knock at your door and say, hey, are there any Jews under your floorboards? And you do, because you're a good person and you're trying to save those lives. Yeah, you're going to lie to protect those lives. So you can have a person who's living without the intention of lying, and then all of a sudden they are instantly thrust into a scenario they didn't see coming, where they are compelled to lie in order to do the right thing. So I'll say no. I can't think of anybody who has never had a situation that they were in where they would be compelled or motivated to lie.
Even something simple, like nobody wants to be out there broadcasting their masturbatory habits, or like, anything.
Yeah,
just like if somebody asks you a personal question and you just don't want to talk about it, that would could tell a lie that isn't necessarily an immoral situation. You're just keeping your privacy while maintaining some sort of rudimentary conversation. Like that's a different thing entirely. So like, there's a million and one somebody Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna just go off of what you just said there. Like somebody can ask me, hey, Eric, how's your day going? My day could be massively shitty. Like I could, if I wanted to, I could probably get into a whole spiel about how bad my day was. But hey, you know what? I don't want to drag this person's day down. These problems are not their problems. So I'm going to say, yeah, I'm doing fine. Like it's a lie.
Yeah,
but it's a lie with an intent to motivate, but I have a good reason to do that. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a million reasons to lie. Some of them completely innocuous. Some of them actually quite righteous. So yeah, I'm going to parrot what Eric said and say I can't think of an adult person living in the real world who would never have a reason to lie, because lying is a useful thing to do sometimes.
So, John, let me ask you a question back, and then I'll let you continue. Do you think that there are do you think that there are justified lies? Do you think that there are lies worth telling?
Well, can I make my point first?
Well, I'm not going to drill you about this question first. Give me a yes or no answer, and then you can continue on to your questions. Do you think that there are justified lies that you should tell in certain situations?
No.
Okay, so if you were living in Germany in the 1940s and you're trying to protect lives by hiding Jews under your floorboards or in your attic, the SS comes at your door and they say, hey, John, you aren't hiding any Jews in your house, are you? What would you tell them?
I wouldn't answer them.
So you just stand there silently and you think that would work?
So John, in a situation like that, how do you think the SS would respond? How do you think they would interpret your silence? They'll interpret your silence as a yes. They'll kick down your door and they'll start searching. So your silence, or telling them the truth, yes, I am, are virtually identical because they're going to lead to the same thing.
Yep.
All right. So I'll ask you again. Do you tell them yes or no?
I wouldn't answer.
Okay, so you would sacrifice I'm just saying, you would sacrifice the lives of these people in order to not tell a lie, is what you're telling me.
It's identical to the yes answer. You're going to sacrifice those lives so you can avoid telling the lie. You see the problem? This is one of the biggest problems, John. This is one of the biggest problems of black and white thinking. Good versus bad. Like you need to look at the world as a series of grays and gradients. Sure, lying is generally bad, but not in all situations. In some situations, lying can be quite virtuous.
Yep.
And this is the Ray Comfort line of questioning that you're getting into. You're basically trying to establish that lying is bad, and you have some reason why we shouldn't lie, and that reason is probably religious. Is that where you're going with your questions there?
Well, I know a person that it's impossible for them to lie.
Is it Jesus?
Is it Jesus?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. I can. Have you ever met and talked to Jesus? had a conversation where he talked back to you, exchanged ideas.
Also, just want to. Oh, sorry. You go ahead. You answer that question first, and then I have a different one.
John, have you ever met Jesus and talked to him and had a back and forth conversation?
No.
All right, then you haven't met Jesus. You don't know Jesus. You know what stories about Jesus say. You know what stories about Jesus say. Unless you can somehow produce Jesus, get him on the call with us so we can talk to him ourselves, because then we can get to know Jesus. But right now, you're just working off of religious texts. Go ahead.
If it's impossible for Jesus to lie, then Jesus would also sacrifice the lives of several Jews in order to preserve his own virtue, which makes Jesus inherently selfish and stupid.
So, in other words, you think that his going to the cross was selfish?
I don't think that happened.
Kind of, yeah, but that's not the question.
That's my question. You think that was selfish for him to go to the cross?
I think it was a ridiculous and silly thing to do, yeah. I don't think it was selfish. Maybe he was entirely selfless, but like the end result of that is a contract written in blood that I am now bound to, despite the fact that I didn't agree to it and would have opposed it if I had the chance. So, yeah. That's an evil, selfish thing to do, is to bind all of humanity to a blood sacrifice that you have decided to make in order to determine the outcome of their eternal souls. Yeah, that's taking a lot of power upon yourself that nobody asked you to, and imposing yourself over other people because of your quote, quote, selfless act. But that's not the point of the call, John. The point is, like, think what Eric pointed out is really important. You would rather allow people to be killed than allow yourself to tell a little fib and to preserve their lives. If you had to lie to save someone's life, you would rather just remain silent. And if you're saying that Jesus can't lie either, then he would do the same thing. And I think that that's corrupt and stupid and short-sighted and narrow-minded and selfish, because it's making sure that your comfort and your worldview is preserved instead of the lives of several other people.
I see.
Let me ask you a couple of questions. John, let me ask you a couple of questions along these lines here. So you're appealing to Jesus and saying that Jesus is somebody who never lied, never had a reason to lie, and he was crucified on a cross. I already know the answer to this question, but please just play along, because I'm going to do some straight epistemology back on you. Why do you think those things are true? Those statements, Jesus never lied, never had a reason to lie, and was crucified on a cross. Why do you think those statements are true?
Because he's the source of truth.
Why do you think that statement is true? Why do you think that statement is true? Like, these are just additional claims. I'm asking, why do you think these things are true?
He was there in the beginning.
Again, you're just reiterating another claim. Why do you think he was there in the beginning?
Because you had to have someone invent the math and the physics and everything else that we see that are part of the laws of our world.
So we got some massive assumptions in there, but I'm just going to roll with it. Okay, I'll say fine. You have to have somebody there. Why do you think it was Jesus?
Because he was the one that became flesh and said that he was the one.
Okay, do you see? And I'm going to ask you, why do you think that? Like, I'm trying to get to the basis or the grounding for these beliefs. Where do these beliefs actually come from? Because as far as if you're the typical Christian, the ones that we typically talk to, these are things that were given to you by your parents or given to you by close loved ones, or you got attached to a particular holy book and started believing the things inside there. So it's usually one of those three. It's either your parents, close relatives and friends, or some book. I'm asking you, why do you believe all the things you just said?
Because his words are recorded. They were written down and recorded.
In the Bible, yes?
In the Gospels, yes.
Yeah, that's part of the Bible. Okay. So my next question is, why do you think what the Bible says is true?
Because Jesus is the truth.
Okay, but here's the thing. All right. So now you just got yourself into a little circle here, okay? Because you made all these claims about Jesus. And then I ask you, why do you think these things about Jesus is true? You say, well, it's in the Bible. And then I'm asking you, why do you think the Bible's true? And you jump right back around to Jesus. You just completed the circle. Do you see a problem here? It's called circular reasoning.
No, because the people that he talked to heard it, wrote it down, and recorded it.
That's the Bible. And I'm asking you, one second, Forrest. I'm going to try to wrap this up here, and then let you jump in. So, John, why do you think the Bible is true? I asked you already. You told me, well, Jesus is the truth, but that's a claim in the Bible. How do you know that claim is true?
Because he said it was.
That's another claim in the Bible. How do you know that claim is true? Like, how do you know anything in the Bible is true? And referencing another part of the Bible doesn't help you because the Bible is what's in question here.
Because we have to have a source of truth.
I'll be right back. I'm going to grab a thing. I'll be back 2 seconds.
Yeah, go right ahead, Forrest. We have to have a source of truth. Okay, fine. I'll roll with that. How do you know it's the Bible and Jesus?
Because Jesus said he was there in the beginning.
Again, the circle continues. Like, John, do you at least, okay, I understand you believe this, but do you at least understand why I don't, and why I look at an argument like this and I go, wow, this is a grand circle. This can't convince me of anything because it's a circular argument. I see the problems with it. Do you at least understand my point of view on this? It's as if, imagine you were talking to a Muslim, all right? And you're asking them, why do you think Muhammad ascended to the heavens on a winged beast? Well, the Quran says so. Why do you think the Quran is true? Well, Muhammad wrote it, and Muhammad was inspired by an angel. Well, how do you know that? Well, the Quran says so. Like, you can see the circle there. And why they wouldn't convince you about Islam. Do you understand the point there? No, John, I'm asking you. I'm not asking you about John, I'm not asking you the specifics of Islam, but if you were presented that argument from a Muslim, I'm confident you wouldn't be convinced. And if you understand why you wouldn't be convinced of that, you understand why I'm not convinced about your argument right now.
The point is Muhammad lied, but Jesus never lied.
John, I have a board right here. I have just written the words, I am God, I am telling the truth. So here I have a claim that I am God, and it says that I'm telling the truth. Do you believe that I am God?
I believe Jesus is God because he resurrected.
Do you believe this, though, that says, I am God, I am telling the truth? Do you believe that this is true?
No, because you're a liar.
Oh, well, hold on. Wait.
John, how do we know the Bible?
Not a liar. I wrote it down. It says I'm not a liar. I am not telling a lie. I am telling the truth. I am God. Do you believe it? It's written down.
No, you're a liar.
How do you know? It says here that I'm not lying.
Yeah. Hey, John, Forrest is pointing you directly towards our contention here. How do you know that the Bible writers weren't liars? Because they were people, right? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. If they wrote those books, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, were they humans? Were they fallible? Were they liars?
We know that they weren't liars because they were totally consistent.
No, they were not consistent at all.
You can tell lies. You can tell lies that are totally consistent. Consistency has nothing to do with the truth value of the actual overall claim. So,
also,
John,
the Bible is not totally consistent. Different books in the Bible say different things about the same thing. Even the Gospels, if you look at Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you mentioned the resurrection. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John all have different stories of how the resurrection happened, who saw it, what was going on at the time. Was there an angel there? Were there two angels there? Were there no angels there? Was the stone moved when the people came to the grave? Did the stone move after they came to the grave with a great earthquake that moved the stone? Was the body inside, or did the body appear before them and then float to heaven? Or was the body completely gone? These are all contradictory stories of those four Gospels. You haven't read the fucking Bible, have you?
What?
So John, are all humans liars? Are all humans capable of lying?
What do they all have in common, all four of them? They have a resurrection story.
Yes,
so
and
John,
all of the books of Harry Potter, all of the Harry Potter also have something in common. They have some magic boy who can cast spells and basically becomes a fucking wizard cop. They're all consistent. Does that mean that they're true?
Yeah.
No, because the author that wrote them knew it was fiction.
And so did the authors of the Bible. Prove me wrong.
No, that's wrong.
How? How do you know?
How do you know?
Because they devoted their entire life, and they even were willing to be martyrs.
So we keep getting to a different thing.
Like that's also from the Bible. Like how do you know that it's not just lies and fabrications straight down into the Bible? How do you know that those statements are true? Because consistency doesn't help you. Having more than one person saying the same claims doesn't help you, because we can get Matt and Jimmy on this show right now, and then all four of us can say, yeah, Forrest is God. That doesn't make that true. How do you know anything in the Bible is true?
We've already established that Matt and Forrest and you are liars.
I also want to point out the fact
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are all humans, and they're all capable liars. And in fact, they are probably all liars. So we're in the same boat.
I also want to point out that some of the Gospels were written by people who didn't actually know Jesus, and some of the Gospels were written like a long time after he died. So even if these people believed it to their core, even if these people were willing to die for their beliefs, do you accept the fact that people today are dying over other religions that you don't agree with? There are Muslims out there dying right now for their belief that you don't believe in. Do you believe that their religion is true because they're willing to martyr themselves over it?
What I'm saying is Jesus is the truth.
Answer my question.
I wouldn't have no idea.
Okay, yeah, so you don't even know what you're saying. Just because somebody wrote it in a book doesn't mean that it's true. Just because somebody believes it doesn't mean that it's true. Just because a book is consistent doesn't mean that it's true. Just because somebody's willing to die for a belief doesn't mean that it's true. Something's true if it's true. And if it's true, it'll have evidence for it. And that evidence isn't, I read it in a Bronze Age sex manual. The evidence is something that we can all verify and collaborate on and understand together. And you've yet to prove that in 22 minutes. You've yet to provide a single bit of actual, reasonable, tangible proof for anything you're saying. All you've said is, I know Jesus is real because Jesus said that he's real. And that's not good enough.
What would make it true for you?
Evidence. Why do you believe in George Washington?
Because of the things written about him.
So if I wrote a book and said George Washington bounced to the moon on his penis like a pogo stick, would you believe it?
No.
Why?
Because it wouldn't have been corroborated by anybody else.
So you need evidence, and the evidence isn't just there's some books, right?
Well, I have the evidence of 4 different authors.
So
okay, so what if 4 people wrote a book about George Washington saying that he bounced on his penis like a pogo stick to the moon? Would you then believe it if 4 people wrote it? And then they died over it. They all went to the gallows to prove their devotion to George Washington and his pogo penis. Would you believe it?
You would have to show me 4 books that said that.
I'm asking you a hypothetical question, dude. Do you know what a hypothetical is?
You would have to show me the actual books that said that.
John, what was the last thing that you ate today?
Cream of wheat.
What would you feel like right now if you didn't eat that cream of wheat?
I don't know what you're driving at.
How would you feel right now if you didn't eat cream of wheat today? How would you feel right now?
I guess I wouldn't feel any different.
Hungry. You would feel hungry because you didn't eat. You were hungry, so you ate something. If you didn't eat anything, you would be hungry. That's how a hypothetical works, John. I'm not saying you didn't eat the cream of wheat. I'm saying if you didn't, things would be different. So if you had books that said something ridiculous and had all the criteria that you believed in today and are giving us today, would you believe the ridiculous thing as well? That's how a hypothetical works. I don't have to show you the books for you to entertain the idea.
You're assuming I would be hungry, but I wouldn't be hungry.
Okay. John, Eric, do you have anything else?
Yeah, John, this will be my final statements there. So you are appealing to the Bible, and when I ask you why you think the Bible's true, you appeal to statements in the Bible about Jesus, and it's a big circle. And like I said, if you don't accept that type of reasoning for Islam, you understand why I don't accept that type of reasoning for Christianity. And here's the reason I reject the Bible. Okay, this is the reason I look at the Bible and I've read it and I say I don't have any good reason to believe any of these things are true. And these are all statements, probably mostly all statements. I don't want to accidentally slip up and put something in there that's not the case, but this is generally the consensus among biblical scholars. The Gospels were written 30 to 40 years, starting 30 to 40 years after Jesus' supposed death. So if Jesus died in 30 or 33 CE, the Gospels started getting written in 60 and 70, with the final Gospel probably being written as late as 110. They were written in a different country, in a different language, by anonymous people. We don't actually know who wrote the Gospels. We have 30, 40 years of hearsay and oral tradition between the supposed events and the actual writing of those Gospels. We don't know who wrote them. We know it was in a different language. And on top of that, we have strong evidence. This is called the synoptic problem. We have strong evidence that Matthew and Luke copied basically Mark. They took Mark and they reworded it into their own words. Or all three of them, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, had a different source called Q. It's a hypothetical source that it's believed that they all copied from. We have strong indications that these were not actually written by the people described in the stories. And even if they were, we have no evidence to corroborate or back any of this up. There's no contemporary corroboration for the accounts of Jesus back then. Usually people rely on Josephus, who was born like 60 years after Jesus lived, so he's not contemporary. Like, we have many, many lines of reasoning to doubt what the Bible says. And the same way that I don't accept a document that says George Washington pogo stick to the moon on his penis, the same reason for that is the one I use for why Jesus wasn't raised from the dead, or why Jesus didn't ascend to the heavens, and why Jesus is not going to be king for 1,000 years or whatever the promise is. Like, these are all the reasons why I reject the Bible. And if you doubt any of those statements, go look at the scholarly studies on this. Go see what consensus is. Look up people like Bart Ehrman, and even look up other Christian apologists that are actually on your side with Christianity, but they agree with the scholarly consensus that, yes, we don't have autographed copies of the Gospels. Yes, Matthew and Luke probably copied Mark. They're not independent sources. Like, we have a boatload of reasons to doubt the Bible, and that's why I doubt the Bible. Go ahead. You have your final word.
Most of what you said is a lie, but we've already established that you're a liar.
Cool. Bye, John.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Yeah.
Bye.
I'm not going to deal with it. Like, honestly, if it was Skeptalk, I'd stay here all night with John. I really would, because like I would love to drill this home. But John is a fucking liar. And it's just the thing that I don't think John understands is you don't have to tell a direct lie in order to be wholly dishonest. And that's what's going on here. Is John is completely dishonest about what he actually believes and why he actually believes it. And he just gives us excuse after excuse after excuse. Well, I believe it because Jesus said it. Well, how do you know he said it? Well, he said in the book that he said it and that he's not telling a lie. What if there was another book that said it? There are no other books that could possibly say these things. They're all lies. This is the only one that I know is true because it says in the book that it's true. Pretending to not know how a hypothetical works, pretending that all the gospels are consistent. Here's the places where they're not consistent. Yeah, but there are places where they are, which means they are. That's not how consistency works. Like, it's just absolutely gross. And frankly, I'm fucking bored of it. Like I said, I would go for a long time with John, but we got a time limit on this show. And Jimmy Snow will beat me if I don't end the call after like 20 or so minutes. So.
And John, here's a takeaway. If you're still listening, here's a takeaway, and think about this on your own time. You don't need to come back and answer anything like that, or anybody else in the audience. When I say John, I'm actually talking to the audience. If any of you are having these types of questions, and you seem to be agreeing with John, or you feel this emotional tug, this need to have Christianity be true, take a moment to reflect on how that could potentially cloud your judgment. How that can impede your objectivity when it comes to analyzing these claims. We just saw from John we pointed explicitly out his circular reasoning and why that wouldn't work for other religions, and how John is special pleading and saying, "Oh, my religion is special. My religion's exempt from these rules because Jesus is my favorite mythological figure, or I need the promises of Jesus to be true. I need to see my loved ones in heaven again, or I need to see people I don't like suffer." Things like that. Imagine how that could how that's clouding John's objectivity. And if you're under the same conditions under whatever religion you're considering, ask yourself honestly, reflectively, is that happening to me? And if it is, how do I compensate for that? How do I correct for that? And John, take all my claims out of the Bible. Go look. I'm not lying. I'm not lying about the claims of scientific scholars or of biblical scholars. Like, if I'm lying about it, you can go out there and figure that out real quick, and then I'd be exposed. But the things I told you about that consensus stuff, it's all true. That's what scholars say. So call me a liar all you want. I have the evidence to back myself up, and I don't care what your opinion is about my status of lying or whatever. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on.
Yep. Gosh, dude. We've got a couple Thea scholars left. One of them is specifically asking a question to me, and one of them is in the screening room right now wanting to talk. They called in a little bit ago and they dropped. And then we have one more here on line 6. I don't know if that's even something you want to mess with, but like I'm down. We've got, we're going to go to Jag for a second. I hope that's how I'm pronouncing the name. Pronouns he or she, calling in from irritating lemurs. They won't get off your back. Jag is the theist who wants to talk to me about abiogenesis. Hopefully we can both get something in here, though. Jag, you are on the line.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And yes, I just knew you were the biologist, so I wanted to direct the question.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm here for you. What's up?
Yeah, so
And is that correct? Either he or she pronouns? I want to make sure that we got that down properly.
Yep, both are good. Anything but they, them.
Sweet. Nope, I love that. That's why I was asking, because sometimes people prefer they, and that could have been a typo. So I just wanted to make sure that I was doing it right. Sweet.
Yeah, so I've been watching your stuff for a little while now, and you talk a lot about abiogenesis when it comes down to the evolution talk. And I did a little bit more reading on that, but it's still extremely confusing to me. Usually, because it's I'm forgetting the name, but it's the one experiment you bring up a bunch, and they shot like electric pulses into the jar of the nucleotides, I think it is.
So that's what it sounds like you're talking about is the Urey Miller experiment. That's like the most famous one. It was the very first one. And it wasn't nucleotides. It was just like random, like it was what they believed at the time would have been on like an early planet. So it was a bunch of inorganic molecules, a bunch of nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, they got it hot, got it cold, hit it with electricity, simulated normal weather patterns that would be on even an abiotic planet. And they formed amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but that was the actual goal. That was the actual goal of the experiment too. Like the goal wasn't to create life in a lab. The goal was to actually just create the building blocks. So they were successful in their experiment.
And that one experiment has been tweaked and altered and rerun a million times. We've learned some new stuff about early planets that makes that experiment irrelevant. But like every time we do this, we find those amino acids. And it's also important to remember that we find them in space. We find amino acids on asteroids and comets and shit all the time out there floating around, on other moons. When we see water on other moons, we find amino acids there sometimes. And there are 20 amino acids. Generally, there's like 22 actually in some cases, but like more often than not, there's 20 amino acids that make up life on this earth. And we found over 500 different kinds of amino acids. So like we found a bunch out there in nature. They just kind of occur whenever. It's just a thing that carbon can do. It can make amino acids real easy.
Yeah, that's kind of what confuses me. It's just like these are mundane things. Would we not see it happen more often in outside of lab settings or anything like that? Because I'm really confused on the why of what's actually happening.
Well, you can find amino acids laying around on the ground. They're, like I said, they're the things that make proteins. So, like, you find them all over the place. But, like, generally speaking, you're going to assume that it has a biotic origin here on the planet Earth. You're going to assume that that amino acid came from something what has amino acids in it. You find some piece of protein on the ground. You go, oh, yeah, so there's some living thing was here however long ago and shit this out. You know what I mean? But what we're talking about is, like, finding them in space. And yeah, we find them with some regularity, just kind of floating around out there. An amino acid sounds like a...
Space.com has an article. Space.com has an article. Astronomers have discovered high amounts of amino acid tryptophan in interstellar material throughout a nearby star birthing region of space about 1,000 light years away. So we've witnessed
out there.
Yeah,
and amino acids sound crazy and complicated. They're really not. It's just a carbon atom with 4 different things attached to it, and carbon has 4 binding sites, so you can attach 4 things to any carbon atom. And the 4 things are all different. You have an amino group on one side. You have a carboxyl group on the other side. It's carboxylic acid. That's why you get amino acid, because it's an amine and a carboxylic acid. And then you have a hydrogen, which is like the most common thing that attaches to carbons all the time. And then you have the 4th part is just something. Anything can stick to the end of that carbon. So like the different amino acids are those same basic pieces: carbon atom, carboxylic acid group, amino group, 1 hydrogen, and then that bottom part is just like it's what we call a side chain. It's just fucking any amount of any combination of something that's stable, some generic carbon molecule hanging off the side of there, or a hydrogen. But like that's what makes an amino acid, and so it's a collection of things that are easy to find in nature, stuck together. And a combination that's pretty easy to make. And we find them all over the place. And amino acids make proteins. Sugars make carbohydrates. We find sugars in space too. Nucleic acids make, nitrogenous bases make nucleic acids, like DNA and RNA. There are 5 nitrogenous bases, adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine, and uracil. We have found all of those in space as well. And then the only one left is fatty acids, which make lipids. And you'll never guess what we found out in this, just nature, just in space. We find them all the time. And so, like, the building blocks of the things that make the macromolecules that make life, we find them all the fucking time. And we are currently, in the past couple of years especially, getting new research showing how they elongate and polymerize and form, like, the big macromolecules, again, all by themselves. Does that answer your question? Or was there something more specific?
Yeah. So is that, like, when do you get from these are a bunch of materials or proteins that just happen to have been formed by whatever? And is it just, if there's a bunch of them and that happens to be the right ones, that transforms into a living being? Or am I missing something?
Yeah, no, that is the big question, is when does stuff become alive? And you can, to make it less freaky for you, this isn't exactly answering your question. I'll get there in a second. But to make it less freaky, consider the fact that you eat food, and then you integrate that food into your body. You are what you eat. And so that is unliving material that you are turning into living material. Even non-living things like salt, sodium, and chlorine, you're going to use those ions in your body. And so you are taking non-living minerals and using them to create life in your body. And without it, you would die. Your nerves cannot fire without sodium and chlorine and potassium. Sodium, potassium, they can't fire. Chlorine, they don't do shit. Or calcium. Is it calcium? It is calcium, not chlorine. I misspoke. That's what pushes neurotransmitters out. You don't care. The point is, that's the whole thing, is that you are turning non-life into life by nature of being alive and eating things. And so just get it out of your brain that it's impossible, because it is. As far as like how it happens in terms of abiogenesis, we already have, like, I don't have an exact answer for you. If I did, I would have I'd be the best astrobiologist in the world. But some steps along the way here are that RNA, ribose nucleic acid, RNA does a million different things in your cells, because it is not only genetic material, it's also a catalyst that speeds up and facilitates a lot of biochemical reactions. It's also things that makes, like, ribosomes. Ribosomes are made of RNA. They're made of rRNA, ribosomal RNA. So, like, for example, when you synthesize a protein, you have this mRNA strand, and it gets read by ribosomal RNA, rRNA. And then tRNA, transfer RNA, is what brings over the amino acids to build the protein. So RNA reads RNA and tells RNA how to build a protein. It's all RNA doing it. And you have microRNA that can degrade the mRNA and stop the protein from being read. And you have a bunch of long non-coding RNAs and short non-coding RNAs and all sorts of different, like, there's 1,000,001 different kinds of RNAs, small nuclear RNAs and cytoplasmic RNAs. And they all do different jobs. And they are also could be used as genetic material as well. And RNA, we see it self-replicating by itself. You can make RNA that can make more RNA. And so, like, the casual definition of life is a self-replicating chemical system capable of evolution. That's the easy definition of life. It's not a good one, but it's fine. And that's what you have there. That's what RNA is. It can be self-replicating. It changes with each replication. It evolves and changes. So I can't give you the exact pinpoint of this is how life happens, because we don't know yet. But what we do know is the stuff that makes life naturally occurs. The stuff that makes life forms the big macromolecules that actually make living tissues through natural processes. Some of those self-replicate. Some of them work together and make better stuff happen. The lipids form the shape of cells naturally. Stuff gets trapped in them naturally. If you get some of this basic self-replicating RNA trapped in a lipid bubble that naturally occurs, it's now protected from its environment. If you get basic proteins in there, which do elongate and can facilitate those types of things, trapped in that same lipid bubble and are protected from their environment, you now have a better self-replicating system. It's not something that we have a step-by-step handbook on yet, but it's not difficult to put the pieces together. We know what we're looking for. We just haven't quite found it yet. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm probably gonna have to listen back at half speed with Google open, but yeah, I think that answers
for sure. Yeah, so that's the long and short of it, yo. And like I said, if you want to get interested in it, check out the NASA's astrobiology primer. Or look up, there's an astrobiologist named Lena Vincent. She's really cool. She's done some videos with me before. She's on TikTok, and she just got her PhD, I think a year or so ago, in astrobiology, and that's what she studies, is how the fuck life starts. And that's a whole burgeoning field of scientific research that you could get into. You could be the one to figure it out. If you wanted to, you could go to school and learn this shit, and you could be the one to figure out where life comes from. That'd be dope.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for having me. That was really interesting.
I'm glad you liked it, yo. We're gonna jump on. We've got a couple other theist callers, and I know you're a theist caller as well, but that's not what you called about, so I don't want to press you on it. But if you want to talk about God as well, I'll give you some reasons as to why to not believe in that. That's what we're here for. That's our favorite thing to do.
Yes, I'm a Hindu, but it's
okay.
More and more as time goes on, it's turning into just a social thing for me. The more I read into it, the more I look into it, and I don't really want to get rid of the label just yet, because I feel like it's still a more accurate descriptor of me.
That's fine.
But I'm trying to learn some more, and you're really good I was never good at biology, and you made it easy, so I wanted to talk to you.
You haven't had a good teacher yet. You can be good at biology if you wanted to. I think I love the questions. I really appreciate it. And we're here for you. If you want to talk about religion, or if you want to talk about science more, I'm doing 2 more shows for the end of this month. Feel free to call me anytime. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Take care, Jag. Eric, do you have anything before I let this person go?
No, Jag, it was great. I mean, I'm not a biologist, so it was fun to listen in. I enjoyed it. Thanks for the good questions, and I appreciate the journey you're on. Take your time. Don't worry about labels. Call yourself whatever you want, and get to where you're going on your own time and on your own terms. You're doing great. I'm rooting for you.
See you on the other side, Jag. Take
Thank
care.
you. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
So, Forrest, before we move on,
yes,
before we move on, Alistair in chat gave us a great idea for a mug. You and me dressed up as colonial founders attempting to get to the moon on a certain penile-based transport system. Do you think we could sell those?
I think we could sell it. I think we could sell that for sure.
I think a few of those will sell.
Snow. Everyone send Jimmy Snow angry emails about how he hasn't made these mugs yet.
Monkey said we should call it a pogo dick.
That. Pogo dick. I love that.
Pogo dicks.
By the way, I want to mention, because I forgot to mention it earlier, that whole podcast I was talking about at the beginning of the show, you remember, we have that connection, where Jimmy calls us and bothers us in the random middle of the night, wakes us up from a dead sleep to ask us strange questions about whatever and win merch for patrons. That whole thing, we're playing a clip of it at the end of this show. So stick around whenever this show is done. I think we're done at 5:00 Central Time, right? We're on for another hour and 45 minutes. And then at the end of that, our producer is going to play like a 30-minute preview of that podcast at the end of this episode. So stay tuned for that. Listen in even after the episode's over and catch a little sneak peek of the podcast. And when you're like, yo, I wish I could hear more of this. This sounds like a really fun time. Go fucking subscribe to our Patreon and shit, because it's not terribly expensive and it helps the channel a lot. And you get more content, and that's what's exciting. We've got, I'll go to this one later. We've got Jed calling in from Cavernous Asshole, who wants to talk about the existence of God and give his arguments for it. Pronouns are he, him. Jed, you are on the line. How are you doing? Jed, can you hear us? Jed, are you there? Jed going once. Jed going twice. Jed going back in the queue, and we will try again in a couple of minutes. I saw Jed had some connection issues. He dropped for a minute, and then he came back. So, like, we'll try again here in a little bit and hope that we get something. We will instead go back to the abiogenesis topic and talk to Noah, pronouns they, them, calling in all the way from Egypt, who says that they want to talk about abiogenesis. Noah, you are on the line.
Hello, Forrest. I'm so glad I can call under my real name now, and like under my my real country, because I've called before under Algeria. So yeah, another fun time.
Right on.
But yeah, hi. So glad to be talking to you.
Are you on a speakerphone or something? There's a lot of scratching going on.
Yeah, your microphone's
I'm
clipping.
on my I'm gonna lower my levels, but I'm on my webcam microphone because my headset microphone didn't work earlier. So
gotcha.
Not sure.
Okay.
Is that
yeah,
fine?
if you'll just bring the gain down a little bit, we'll adjust on our side if we need to, but it's clipping a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So my question is similar to the previous question. I actually was afraid that I'm gonna ask the same question twice in a row, but I just want to know what's keeping us from making life in a lab, and not just RNA and nucleic acids. I'm just like, why aren't we making self-replicating cells yet? And like, do we know that actually can happen in nature if we can't make it under really controlled conditions in a lab? Because like the way you describe it, it seems very mundane. It seems very common. And I feel like it should be happening all the time. Like a lot of cells should be abiogenesing it down in the ocean all the time. But I just don't think it's happening.
So the issue here is that like the things that make life are very mundane. The conditions that make life appear to be pretty mundane as well. But two major problems. Number one, the stuff that makes life, if it's out there in nature right now, what you actually have is just a very nutrient-rich, nice place to live. And that means that existing life is going to come in there and gobble all that up. If you had a boatload of the stuff that makes amino acids, or even just amino acids by themselves, floating around in a tide pool ready to start life, bacteria and phytoplankton and zooplankton are going to move in there and eat every single bit of that and live in that beautiful, wonderful little place, because the earth, every square inch of the earth is freaking teeming with life. And so like that's kind of where we're at right now. It's not impossible that new life is popping up every now and then, but we're not scouring the entire surface of the planet with a microscope at every moment, so we're not going to catch it, and it's going to get gobbled up. And so as it stands right now, all evidence points to all life on this planet coming from one common ancestor. There may have been, in fact, there probably were several abiogenesis events before that. The one family that survived is the family that currently encompasses all life that is currently living on this planet, unless you want to count viruses, which is a really interesting thing to think about. So yeah, that's what we're looking at now. I'm sorry, go ahead, and I'll answer the other part of your question.
Yeah, and like, then why isn't it possible yet in a sterile condition, like in a lab?
Yes. So that one, I don't know for sure if they are currently working on like just trying that, or if they are actually just trying like the pieces and trying, because the thing about scientific research, it's not what it looks like on TV where you pull a switch and lightning strikes and you make a whole person out of nothing. It's a lot more like, can I make this one specific molecule with any kind of reliability? Can I make this one molecule look this way with any kind of reliability? Can I make the one molecule that looks this way turn in a clockwise circle with any kind of reliability? That's what, like, scientific research is tiny, tiny, tiny little questions at a time. So it's not impossible, but I don't know for sure because I'm not an astrobiologist and I'm not up to date with the literature in that area. I don't know if anybody is currently just trying to make a complete new living thing. What I do know is,
but
even if... Sorry, go ahead.
Go on.
Well, I was going to say that, like, even if, like, even if we were trying that, it's reasonable to expect that it would take a good deal of time, and so maybe that's an issue. Maybe, again, not sure what the current state of literature is on that point. But even if we couldn't, let's say, just for sake of argument, that like we've tried 1,000,001 ways and we don't fucking know how to make life in a jar. We just can't pull it off. And that's not too far off, because that's kind of how it is with an enantiopure mixes of amino acids. So amino acids, I mentioned their structure. They're what we call chiral molecules. And so this is a whole thing we call stereochemistry, which is that the molecule with the exact same parts does different stuff if those parts are in different arrangements. And so you get what we call left or right-handed molecules. So you have the exact same pieces of the amino acid, but if they're in a different order around that central carbon, the amino acid is going to behave differently. A great example of that, this is what we call an enantiomer. A great example of a chiral molecule, chiral meaning it has a central, and you have different enantiomers, different arrangements. So if you have different arrangements of this forming different enantiomers, a great example of that is thalidomide, which was a really common drug for treating morning sickness for pregnant people. And then we found out that, like, one hand, the one shape of the molecule treated morning sickness, the other shape of the molecule caused birth defects. And so you can still look up today. There's people called thalidomide babies that were born with an arm or something like this.
I would have thought that you'd have gone for I would have thought you'd have gone for like 0-calorie sugar, like aspartame and stuff. No. Yeah.
I like really shocking examples that stick in people's brains. And so, like, yeah, that's the whole thing. And so, like, with amino acids, we can reliably make them in a lab, but we get what's called a race mixture. We get a mixture of both right and left-handed amino acids. Problem is, all life on the planet only uses left-handed amino acids all the time, forever, always. They only use left-handed amino acids. And we don't have an abiotic way to make left-handed amino acids. We can do it with enzymes, and we can do it with precipitation, and we can do it with like there's several ways to do that in a lab, but not one that doesn't require some sort of like intervention of some sort of living thing. And so we don't know where enantiopure, all purely left-handed homochiral amino acids come from, but when we find them out in space and shit, they're always left-handed. And so like there clearly is a way, we just don't know it. Yeah. And so like that's kind of here with this as well. Like even if we genuinely had no idea at all about where life started, we know it started, and we don't have a reason to believe in anything supernatural. And so we're still just looking for the answer. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I'm guessing like it's a God of the gaps thing. But it's really interesting to me that, like you said, probably no one is looking for this, because I would have guessed it would have at least won you a Nobel to create life out of nothing.
Oh goodness! Yes.
And so like I would have guessed like there's some people trying to prove the deniers of abiogenesis is wrong, because like that's what scientists do, right? They prove skeptics wrong. But yeah, like, okay, so during my day-to-day life, if you don't mind me going on a tangent and possibly a different question, during my day-to-day life, like I'm taking the atheist side of any faith-based debate I'm in. And I don't know if you know this, but there's this organization in Egypt that's highly atheist, and like it's been very controversial. And the number one thing that I or that organization gets in debates is you shouldn't debate me. You should debate someone who like has studied this stuff. And what makes me angry about that is if you don't know how to defend it, then you don't know why you believe it. Then you shouldn't believe it in the first place, right? And I fear that I might be yeah.
Actually, no. Let me just interject right there. I think
I might have missed something.
With certain things, it's okay to believe tentatively, because even if you lack expertise, like for instance, I don't know how the Saturn V rocket works, but I know it got us to the moon. So, and that's because I trust the scientists and the actual real authorities in the field to tell me, yes, this works. So I believe the Saturn V rocket works. Plus, I also have like evidence that it works as well. So I don't think you need to have perfect knowledge or the ability to even argue a point to a certain extent in order to believe something is true. As long as that belief is held tentatively and you're saying to yourself, yeah, I don't understand this field completely, but I do trust the established authorities in it. But anyway, go ahead. I just wanted to nitpick something you said there.
In that example, I wouldn't say, like, I wouldn't defend the Saturn V working if I didn't see it for myself, like flying into space, right? Like that's evidence for me, and that's how I'm able to defend it. But like if I know nothing about it to the extent that, like, if someone poses a question to me, I don't know what to say, then like that's ostensibly a good point on their part, and I like just my lack of ability to rebut is a reason to like introspect and tell myself maybe I'm wrong, right? And that's what I'm getting at, is I feel like a bit of a hypocrite doing this because I don't understand abiogenesis, for example, right? I've not seen it happen.
Right.
No one's seen it happen. I don't understand evolution. I have seen it happen. Everyone's seen it happen. So I can like adequately defend that. But when it comes to stuff like what if Noah's flood was local? Then you'd have no rebuttals, or like then you'd have no reason to not believe that Noah's flood didn't happen, because like if it was local, then it's very practical, right? Like they just took a few animals on the ship, and those animals interbred again, and that's fine, right?
So the thing is,
am I a hypocrite? Am I missing something? Yeah.
No, so two things. Number one, the reason why I missed what you were saying earlier, I apologize. I was double checking because I said that all the time when we find amino acids in space, they're all left-handed, and I was like, I want to double check that. I did double check, and I'm glad I did. I was wrong. They are a lot of times they're all left-handed. There are times where we find them in equal portions. So it's not every single time that we find them. That was incorrect for me to say, and I caught it immediately. I was like, wait a minute. We find them in equal portions, but a lot of the times we find them in only homochiral states. Want to clear that up because anybody could then find a single right-handed molecule in space and say I'm wrong.
Nature hates them, huh?
What's this? Sounds like what?
It sounds like nature hates them. Just like there's a bias towards homochiral amino acids.
Kind of like how there's a bias towards matter and not antimatter, and we don't know why. Yeah, exactly. We don't know what's going on, but there's something there definitely. So right-handed molecules in space, or right-handed amino acids in space, they exist. They're just we do find the left hands. Anyway, the point is, you were talking about. I just want to correct that before I moved on because I would have driven myself crazy, and I hate putting out things that aren't true. I don't think that you're being hypocritical by saying that I don't know this stuff. As long as you're comfortable just saying I don't know this stuff. I don't know shit about geology. I am a bad geologist. It's the science that I've studied the absolutely least. That and software and computer stuff. I don't know anything. Jimmy Snow hates how much I call him and ask him really basic computer questions. What the fuck is my graphic card doing? And he's like, have you updated it ever? And I'm like, what's an update? And he doesn't know. I don't know anything about it. And so I don't know shit about it, but I know it works. And I know the people who study it know how it works. And I know that I can use a little bit of it. I don't know nothing, but I can move on with my life, using computers and understanding that rocks exist and they tell us stuff. I'm about to go on a paleo dig next week, and there's a guy who goes with us who's a geologist who can literally fucking just pick up a rock from the ground and read it like a book and tell you this is where it's from, this is what it's made of, this is where we're going to find a fossil within 500 yards of it in this direction. And I'm like, how the fuck do you know that? And he just what he does. And so that I don't need to know everything about what he knows. I just need to know that he's able to pull it off and that his results work. And so that's the biggest thing. It's not just taking it on faith to believe what a scientist is saying about the field that they study. You see their results and you see that they work. So in terms of evolution, I know you said that you accept evolution because you can see it, but evolution, even if you don't know a damn thing about it, everything you buy from the grocery store is a result of an artificial selection. Every time you get another vaccine or another round of antibiotics, it's because of evolution. It's everything that we agriculture and medicine work because of evolution. And so if you don't have that and you don't have our understanding, those things don't work. So that's the results that affect your life every day that are clear on the ground that you don't have to know evolution. You just have to know that. As far as abiogenesis, sorry,
I want to make something clear here. So my two criteria for possibly accepting something as true is I can see it and test it for myself, or a lot of people can see it and test it and they're really invested in proving it wrong, right? And that's where religion fails for me, because the people who study religion are not invested in proving religion wrong, right?
And that's
so fine. Those are the two things for me.
So wait a minute, but it says here you're calling in as a theist. So then, what if religion fails for you? Then what's your belief system all about?
I just think it's ostensibly possible that a God exists, and if we allow for that possibility, if we don't definitely say that a God doesn't exist, and we allow for the possibility, then because it's all so big, I think just hedging my bets and believing that something exists is necessary to be correct. It's it's not about divine punishment or any of that. It's just
absent of any possibilities, I know you just say you don't care about consequences of whether God exists or not. I think those are all great places to start from. But just at your core, do you believe a God exists or do you not believe a God exists?
I don't. I just think it's very possible.
Okay, so by the typical definition of atheist, the colloquial use that we use in this show and most non-philosophers use, you're an atheist by that definition. Now, if you want to change your definitions and call yourself a theist under some other definition, you're absolutely free to do so. But by your answer there, both when Forrest and I look at you, in our mind, we're seeing atheist because you do not believe a God exists.
Yeah, you kind of
and just because you're an atheist,
I think like
if you want to stick with if you want to stick with philosophical definitions, more stringent definitions, then you are either a non-theist, an igtheist, or just an agnostic, and you wouldn't be an atheist under those types of definitions. But I would say under both colloquial and under philosophical definitions, a theist you are not. You are either an agnostic or an atheist. But use whatever labels you want. I'm just simply saying.
Okay, so
they're very smart.
I'm not thrusting a label. I'm not thrusting a label on you. I'm just trying to clear up any cloudiness around this issue. So,
yeah, I just I don't want to be dishonest, but when the screener was asking me, we got into this very long conversation about what am I? I don't know, right? But because I allow for the possibility, I thought I would label myself as a theist because atheists
that's fine.
Just seem to reject that possibility altogether.
That's fine. I just want to make sure you know what we're talking about.
Just next time, keep in mind, because that caused a little bit of confusion, at least for me, because I have in my notes here where I was like, well, he's talking from the atheist point, but he's a theist. So I have a big question mark, and I have it pointed towards theist in my notes and atheist conversationalist in my notes. And I'm like, question mark, what's going on here? So it actually generated some confusion for me early on. So you might want to avoid doing that in the future, just so we can avoid that type of confusion. But anyway, that's
I'm very sorry.
But that's just us.
Just,
nothing to apologize for. Nothing to apologize for.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you have nothing to apologize for. That's just
in a God. I would debate on the atheist side because I do love proving myself wrong. If I'm debating with an atheist, if I'm debating with an atheist on any casual day, I would take the theist side and I would defend what's it called, steel man, the theist position as much as I could because I want someone to push me to be wrong.
Yeah,
for sure.
You want to engage honestly. Yeah.
All right, Noah. I think we've covered pretty much everything here. We've got a couple more calls, and we have a little bit of time left, so we're going to move on. But is there anything else you wanted to ask before we do?
No, thank you very much. And you two keep doing what you do. I appreciate it very much. I'm actually going to go to bed right now. It's
I was going to say, what time is it in Egypt? It's 30 minutes a minute. Well, thank you for staying up so late for us. I appreciate it.
Cool. Bye.
All right. Take care, man. Bye-bye.
Bye, Noah.
They were super nice.
It's almost midnight.
Yeah, and they stayed up so late just to talk to us. That's so kind. Mm-hmm. We've got a couple of calls left that I think are going to be a lot of fun. But before we get there, I just want to remind everybody one more time that we've got a podcast. It's on the Patreon thing. It's called Live on the Line. It's a nightmare, and you should listen to it. And you can listen to it if you just join our Patreon. And if you want to know whether or not you should listen to it, stick around to the end of this show. We're going to be playing about 30 minutes of it for you. But for right now, we're going to talk to a person named Twilight, going by any or all pronouns, calling in from Mexico, who labels himself as a theist here, but is calling to ask, am I a theist or an atheist? I feel like we can knock this out really quick. Twilight, you are on the line. How are you doing today?
Hello.
Hello. So really quick, do you believe that a God exists?
Yes.
Well, then you're a theist.
I think. I think. My question would be, I don't belong to any religion. I was raised Catholic, but never believed, because my family has always been lukewarm religious. So they really didn't put that much effort into indoctrinating me. And when I was told the story of Jesus and the resurrection, I was like, that cannot be true. That sounds as ridiculous as Hercules or Thor. And I never really believed. And I just went along with the culture customs. And when I grew up, I realized I never believe in this. Why am I calling myself a Catholic? And I started calling myself an atheist. Yeah. But then I'm a writer. So I create a lot of stories and I create a lot of worlds. And when I was trying to create these stories, I started to do research in the supernatural as a matter of getting to science fiction and stuff like that. And I started to realize that all of this time, I always believe that there is something there. And I started to try to craft this concept of what could be there. And I look into other religions. Finally, I started looking into many, many religions. You know them all. You deal with them all the time. And after all my research and after all the information that I got from, even from you guys, I read a lot of your, but I watch a lot of your videos. I watch a lot of your videos from you, Forrest. I saw your videos. I love your Light of Evolution series.
Oh, thank you.
No, you're welcome. And after doing research all over the internet, I got with this idea that I'm really, like, I believe, I could say that I believe, and you can call me a low bar bill, because I know that I lower my epistemic thing a lot, just like she said, because I know that there is a big chance that it's not true, but I firmly believe that there is an entity out there somewhere that has just these three attributes, which would be that it has a way to contact us, that doesn't care for worship or what you believe, and that have some insight in how everything works and in how everything connects. So it can not tell you more than show you if you're in the right path, if something is going to happen. And I believe that the way that we connected is through some kind of sixth sense that is being developed inside of us. I know it's really, that's what I do.
Okay.
So it sounds like it sounds to me like you're bordering on deism, but you're claiming that you think that this entity can actually interact with us, so it's not quite deist. So you are, by definitions that we use, you are a theist, but you just aren't attached to any particular religion. Yeah.
Okay, that would be a good way. And then a question that I've been having that precisely comes with this is, how do you separate when someone believes that something is there? How do you separate the gods from the non-gods? Because I know that there are people that believe that aliens created us, and they are not theists, right? The people that believe that are not theists.
No, that would be a weird kind of almost panspermia. Like that. The thing is, like, no, I wouldn't call them a theist, but I would call their position as silly, because it's something, again, that we just don't have any evidence for. Actually, you know what? I would say that believing that aliens created life on Earth is actually a little bit less silly than believing that a god did it, because at least we know that, like, the statistical probability of, like, the size of the universe, and we know that life does exist in the universe, and therefore saying that it exists elsewhere isn't too radical of an idea. But a god requires extra dimensional, outside of space and time, something out of the universe, something that is actually eternal. Those are things that we don't have any evidence for. So I would say that it makes a little bit less sense. But no, I wouldn't call them theists. For you, though, I would just ask, like, your story at the very beginning sounds like almost word for word like my own story. I was raised pretty pagan. My mom believed in witchcraft. My grandma was like a half-assed Buddhist. My dad was a Catholic. I don't know how that happened. And I was raised to believe a lot of the things that they believed, mainly for cultural reasons. I was also taught all the other religions of the world and all sorts of different mythology. I learned, Greek mythology and Norse mythology and Roman mythology and Christian mythology and Egyptian mythology. And so I felt the exact same way you did. When I heard the story of Jesus, I thought this is a lot like the story of Hercules, the story of Thor, the story of Zeus, the story of whoever. This is the same kind of bullshit, and I didn't believe it. But I held on to my magical thinking because it was the cultural thing to do in my family until I got to a certain age when I let it go. And it was because I just applied the same rules of logic and morality to that I did to anything else. And so for you right now, what you're talking about, it sounds like you're right there on the same journey, is that you had this cultural upbringing. you knew it was bullshit, but you just kind of ran with it. And then you got to a certain age that you're ready to let it go. But now you're in like this liminal space where you don't have the idea of like a personal, omnipotent God that's watching you masturbate. But you do have this kind of residual leftover of like, well, something's out there that probably made us and maybe sometimes intercedes in our lives if it's really important, but more often than not, they're kind of aloof, but every now and then they'll help you out because they do care, and you're kind of in this like gray area. Is that a pretty good summary of what you said, or did I miss something?
Yes, I don't believe that it's taking care of us. That's something that they definitely don't. But yes, you're close.
You are speaking exactly the same language that I spoke at 19. And I wonder, like, are you willing to push further on that? Because I would still call you a theist right now. But like, is that something that you want to push further on and see, like, maybe, okay, well, if this God is around and doesn't care about us, so there's no reason for me to go down the traditional line of questioning about like, okay, well, why did it do this and why did it do that? But like, if this God is out there and made the whole universe and doesn't give a shit about where we're at, okay, then you'll need some reason to believe in that. You'll need some sort of positive evidence for that. So where does this God live?
I believe, like, what I believe is that I don't believe in the supernatural. I believe that there are things that are natural that science hasn't got there yet to explain them.
Agreed.
So
agreed. I think that is very true.
Yeah. Okay. So eventually science will get there. So my idea is this. I could be right about there's being this quasi-God that I think that it is. And if I'm right, then that would be really cool. And eventually science will prove that there is like another plane of existence where this exists. And maybe we interact with it all the time. And we don't know. And science will get there and will show us, hey, there is another plane of existence and we didn't know that it was there. And that's why ghosts exist. And are not ghosts. They're other things that we thought were ghosts, but they're not. And they were there all the time. So that's why I think it's
let's look at something that's kind of similar to that. When we talk about different plane of existence and things like that, like germs, microorganisms, right? Way back in like the 1700s, we knew there were tiny little things because you had like Leeuwenhoek with his little microscope and shit. But like actual real germ theory, like actually understanding where disease comes from and things like that, that wasn't established until like the mid 18 to like early 1900s. So if you believed Twilight, in the year 1500, if you were out here telling me that there are tiny little things called germs, these little bacteria and viruses and microbes and parasites and all these little tiny things that can get inside your body, you can't see them and you can't smell them and you can't hear them. They're just absolutely tiny and they can crawl around your body, and your body's made of cells, by the way, that you don't know that either. But they can get inside your cells and they can cause you to be sick. And that's where sickness comes from. It's not witches. It's actually these tiny little living things that you can't see. Would I have a reason to believe you in the year 1500? No. And so, but you're right. You are telling the truth. But there's no reason to believe it because we don't have any actual evidence for it yet. You shouldn't believe in germ theory until after like 1920 or something like that, when it's we have an actual solid bit of evidence for it and we have a reason to believe that. And so like what you're talking about now, sure, maybe there's something out there. Maybe there's some guy who does this stuff and he's flying around in space cooking up life because he's a space wizard and he's cool like that. Maybe. But even if that's true, you need evidence to believe it. And if you're banking on, well, maybe someday science will catch up to me the way that it would have with germ theory, there's a bigger chance that it won't. And you're going to be sitting here just saying something that just isn't true, hoping that someday you'll be validated. And that, to me, sounds like a lot more of a dangerous position. Do you agree or do you not?
Why dangerous?
And actually, that ties into what I was wanting to ask you, Twilight. So you mentioned earlier you threw out the term low bar bill, so you're kind of familiar with the meme economy around William Lane Craig and how he lowers his epistemological standard when it comes to the religious claims because he has emotional need for that. This is not necessarily, feel free to answer it on this call, and if you don't know or you want to think about it before you answer, you can just go ahead and take the question away and just think about it on your own terms. But you said that you're doing that yourself. And my question is, why are you doing that for this particular issue? This ties into what Forrest was just saying about justification for your beliefs and how there might be a true belief out there, but you just simply don't have the justification to accept it quite yet. It could change in the future, but we believe, even today, we believe many false things with justification because we either lack evidence or we lack the proper methodology or the tools, or there are things that we can conceive as true, but we don't have the justification to currently accept as true. So it's important to remain honest with our current limitations and our current limited pool of evidence and being patient for things to develop before we start accepting new things as true. And I agree with all that. But for this particular thing, you said low bar bill, lower epistemological standard for this particular thing. And my question is, why do you do that for this particular thing?
I have experiences like the typical like TS experience of I heard a voice and it told me things. It happened to me about 3 times in my life, and that is the reason. The reason is my personal experience that I know that is all anecdotal, and obviously I'm not trying to convince you guys. Definitely not.
Of course. Yeah, but, I'm not gonna beat you up over it. Yeah, I'm not gonna beat you up over that. I guess I will ask though, so you've had 3 independent experiences in your life where you've heard voices, and I've had events in my life where I've heard voices. I've seen things that aren't there. I think maybe a few episodes ago, I mentioned that I once ate a Jack in the Box hamburger, and I started seeing cats in my house, and I didn't own any cats at the time.
That's a very common occurrence if you get a Jack in the Box, though. That's
yeah, especially in the part of town I got it from. I don't know what was in the hamburger, but anyway. But I guess my question is why are you taking these 3 experiences and then making that leap to there's something divine, or there's something like some type of God or some type of being communicating with me? Like, why are you latching on to that conclusion or that explanation when we have other explanations that can properly explain these things, natural explanations like hallucinations? Your hamburger was spiked because some fast food worker wanted to play a joke on you. Maybe you have a false memory, or maybe you're, there's all kinds of natural explanations for why you would hear a voice. Why are you jumping to the supernatural explanation or this unjustified explanation instead of just going towards a perfectly sufficient justified explanation?
I have an answer when you're done. I have a prediction that I think is going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write it down.
I have 2 reasons. The first one is that I have OCD, and let's say that my mental health is not the best. I've had to deal with it all my life. It had been really hard, and because of this, I've had a lot of voices in my head all of my life. I don't think it's paranoia, but I've always listened to things that are inside my head that I know that they're not real, but they're there, and I listen to them, and I know that they come from me, and I deal with that all of my life. I almost have a partitioned brain that does different things at different times. And sometimes I have conversations. We have conversations. My different parts of my brain have conversations with each other to get to an opinion or something to do, or we decide. And I have to have these conversations like that.
Okay, can I ask a clarifying question here? You mentioned 3 specific instances where you heard voices as the reason why you jumped to a God. But now you're telling us, due to your OCD, you've been hearing voices a lot in your life, and you have conversations with them. Yes. What makes those particular 3 that you mentioned earlier? What makes those stand out? Like, why are those different?
Well, they just feel different. I can tell you that they feel very different, and because of all my experience of having voices in my head, hearing a voice that doesn't sound like it comes from myself, well, that startled me. And that made me think, okay, there's something else here. Something different is happening. And it could be natural. I wanted you guys to know that if you tell me, this is all your brain, I actually have like an agnostic point of view in saying that, yes, you could be completely right and it could be in my head. But it all felt very different when I have all of these voices in my head. And also, the next one is that what the voice told me, it was something that I didn't know. And it happened after the voice told me, and I didn't know. So it was like very startling. And it made me think, okay, this was different. Even if it was from inside my brain, even if it came from inside my own brain, this was completely different.
Sorry, Twilight, I don't want to cut you off here. So we're on to point 2 now, where you said the voice told you something that would happen, and it did happen. Before we dig into that, going back to your point 1, you said that, hey, all these occurrences, including the 3 that stand out to me that felt different, could be natural. You said they could be natural. And again, my initial question is still there. Why are you making that jump? I'll accept that you hear all these voices. I'll accept that you have 3 instances where they felt different. And by your own admission, then they could all be natural. So why are you making that jump to supernatural for those 3 when even by your own admission that they could all be natural? Like, you said they felt different, but why does feeling different give you that justification to jump to supernatural?
As I say, I admit it that I'm lowering my epistemic standard.
Okay.
Yes.
And I think that goes back to my previous question. Why are you doing that? Yeah. Yes. I'm not trying to beat you up. I'm just trying to kind of drill down into kind of what's going on here, you know?
I actually,
go ahead.
After I learned about this, after I learned about these, about everything, I started watching your shows. I started watching everything that I could on YouTube about this topic because I wanted to know what was going on. I realized effectively that I want to believe it. That it's my feelings that maybe is what Forrest said, that I don't let go completely of this because my feelings doesn't allow it, because it felt too real
I win
to
a
me
gold
to just
star.
Say, I let it go.
But you asked Eric, you asked why don't you do it with these, why do you have special rules? And I said I'm going to make a prediction, and my prediction was cultural predisposition to belief. And that's what you're saying. You grew up believing something like this, and it's just easier to do it, and it's more comfortable to do it, and it's what you're used to. And so when you have this event that could be described by other means, then you are just predisposed culturally to believe the thing because it's what reminds you of your childhood and it's what makes you happy. And so like you talk about like you struggle with voices that you talk back and forth to. It's an inner dialogue that's extreme. And like that, I get that. I'm not diminishing it or diminutizing it, but like, and then you say these voices gave you predictions of things. It's possible to predict things that happen sometimes and be right, but I bet you wouldn't pay attention to it all the times that it didn't happen and you weren't right. It's just the times that it does feel right that you latch onto and ascribe more meaning to. And that meaning probably becomes more and more profound and more compelling the longer that you sit with it, because that's how our memories work, is you make the fish bigger and bigger every time you tell the story. And so like, you have some, I'm not, like I said, I'm not diminishing your mental illness. I'm not trying to take that away from you. I'm just saying that like what you're describing here is by and large the same kind of thing that a lot of theists that don't have OCD have and talk about. Yours is probably just a little bit more pronounced. And you even you admit that you're lowering the bar for this thing because it's more comfortable for you. And so I think I'm not going to pressure you right now. I think you're well on the way on yourself. But I think that like, if you continue raising that bar, not even to a ridiculous level, if you raise the bar to the same level that you would have for anything else, I don't think that you'd have a reason to believe this. And this is me now preaching. I think you would be a little bit more relaxed about it and maybe not compound back onto your own mental issue to try to build this back up into more than it is, because I bet you anything, auditory hallucination is a lot scarier when you think that it's fucking real, you know? But that's just me. I'm not a psychotherapist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not telling you what to do there. I'm just saying that, like, it sounds very reasonable what you're saying, and I think it has a better explanation. That's just me.
And Twilight, I mean, and it just kind of go off of what Forrest just said and what he has on the whiteboard there. The need for hope, meaning, and purpose is a very powerful drive in humans, and it can cloud our objectivity and our judgment. I mean, we all want to have the idea. I mean, I want to have the idea that something's in charge and everything's going to be okay. There's a purpose for us. Like, I have those needs and wants and desires. I want to live longer than the 80, 90 years I'm probably going to exist on this planet. Like, I have needs and wants and stuff like that, but I can't let that cloud my judgment when it comes to assessing what's true and what's false. Because, I mean, like, I could be in a hospital bed and I could have stage 4 cancer, and somebody can come into me and give me a bunch of comforting lies. There's a revolutionary new treatment. You're going to be cured. We're going to have to do this, this, and this, and it's cost this much money. Like, my need to be cancer free doesn't make those claims true. And in fact, my need for my cancer to go away can cloud my judgment in accepting those claims. This is a big problem with more dubious types of humans these days, where they prey on people like you, people like me, people like Forrest, like most humans that have these needs, and they swoop in and they give you these promises. They swoop in and they give you that salve over that sore spot in our existence where we want the answers, we want security, we want all these things. And just kind of finish my rant there also for what we mentioned here, because you mentioned that you hear multiple voices, and there's 3 instances that stand out to you because they felt different, and you also said that what the voices told you also happened. So are you familiar with something called the Texas sharpshooter fallacy? Is that something you've ever heard of?
No.
And it's okay if you didn't. It's a more esoteric fallacy, but it's a type of reasoning where when you have a lot of samples, and you tend to ignore the samples that don't confirm your bias, and you overemphasize the ones that do. For instance, the Texas sharpshooter fallacy. Let's say a guy has a machine gun, has 30 bullets in the clip or in the magazine. He fires all 30 bullets at the wall. All right, so now he has a wall with 30 bullet holes in it, and he walks over. And he paints, after the fact, he paints bullseyes around 3 of the holes. And he stands back and goes, look at that. Look at how good I am with my sharpshooting. I hit all 3 of these bullseyes. He ignores all the misses, all the other holes, but he's going to really overemphasize those 3 that he painted the target around. And I recommend you reflect on the voices you hear and how these 3 particular voices or instances stand out to you. And how perhaps maybe after the fact, you're drawing connections. After you've heard the voice and after you saw this event occur, perhaps you're going back and drawing those bullseyes in yourself and going, wow, look at these 3. These 3 make me feel special, or these 3 have some type of special meaning to me because of just how coincidence played out. And you're ignoring all the others. Ask yourself, could that be happening to me? And could that be clouding my objectivity?
Yes.
I recommend looking it up. It's a fascinating fallacy.
Think about it.
Yeah.
I would need to really think about it.
Yeah.
And anyway, Twilight, this has been a fucking... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I just want to say, I mean, I don't want to be here and be the asshole that's trying to rob you of your comfort. I think that, yeah, these things have utility. These things do give us that, like I said, it's a salve over a sore. Like we want to have this type of comfort. But I think there are much better ways to handle those types of the human condition, rather than just telling ourselves stories and just believing them because we want them to be true. And I wish you luck in your journey on that. I hope you reflect on what we said. And this was an excellent conversation. Go ahead, Forrest.
Oh, no, I was going to say the same thing. I was going to say this has been an amazingly productive call, and I hope you call us back and ask more questions and talk this through a little bit more, because we're always going to be here for you, dude.
I would love to. I think that what you're doing in this show is amazing. It's really useful. I do believe that religious organizations are bad, definitely. I agree with you in that, Forrest.
Well,
and I really hope that you keep doing this amazing job that you're doing, and you keep helping people like me. I know that we are all a little confused in this life that we're living, and there's so many options and so many things that they tell us and bombard us with all of these beliefs and all of these things. So yeah, it's a good thing that we at least try to think things through instead of just believing. You're right. That's why I'm calling,
Sure.
because yes, I'm like,
I love that.
am I completely insane?
Honestly, from everything I heard,
Twilight, you're on the right track.
From everything I've heard, the fact that you're dropping low bar Bill, talking about epistemology, you understand the concepts there. You've looked into this a lot. You're taking a genuine interest in it, and I think you're well on the path. So, kudos to you, and keep on going. I think you're doing great.
My Spanish that I learned is from Cuba a lot of the time. Is cuidate a good way to say, like, take care and be well in your country as well?
And you got it right. Thank you.
Excellent. All right. Take care, Twilight. See you later.
Take care, and thank you.
They're super nice.
I just looked up good luck. Buena suerte.
What'd you say?
Buena suerte. Good luck.
Buena suerte.
If Google is to be trusted, buena suerte. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. Buena suerte. Yeah. I learned cuidate as just like take care. But it's a kind of careful, because it's a weird word, because by itself it also means like watch out. And so like beware.
Watch out.
And my favorite, you can also say like if you say cuidate con something, you're talking about like be careful. This was so like the way I learned specifically was like cuidate con los federales. Watch out for the feds. They're around. But to say it as a goodbye, just cuidate, take care of yourself, be well. But yeah, okay. So we've got a couple left, and we've got a little bit of time. I think we've got about an hour left. We've got a couple of people here, and got a couple of these left. We're going to go to Joe. Joe, pronouns he, him, calling in from Nimble Crayfish. A lot of crustaceans today. Nimble Crayfish is a theist who says lying does nothing more than cloud the truth. I don't know what this call is going to be about. Joe, you're on the line. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. How about you guys?
I'm doing all right.
Good.
We agree lying's bad. We had a whole call about lying a little bit ago. I don't know if you heard it.
I did. I didn't feel like you guys really got into it enough, maybe he went off on his little streetwise epistle or whatever thing he was doing.
It was a bad time.
When it comes to like Nazi Germany, though, my argument for that would be that the Nazis were the actual liars in that situation. You know what I'm saying? Like they weren't.
Well,
they weren't
but the question that we posed was, would you lie in order to protect the lives of other people?
Yeah, and the point of the question was that lying is okay under certain contexts. Lying is actually moral under certain contexts. Yeah.
Yeah, precisely. But would you consider that moral lie really a lie? Like if it is a lie inside of someone else's lie, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I'm telling something that isn't true.
The foundationary lie there would have, I'm sorry guys, the foundationary lie there would have been that the Jews are people that we are allowed, not we, but the Nazis would have been, their mindset would have been, these are people we are allowed to enslave and murder at our will. And that would have been the overarching lie. You know what I'm saying? So when that person comes to my house,
two lies make a truth?
Two lies do not make a truth, but
right. So I see what you're saying. Because you're lying to people who also believe a lie doesn't make that it's not a lie. You're still lying. You're saying something that objectively isn't true. You're saying I am not hiding any Jews when you actually are. That's a lie, but it's a good lie. It's a lie that you should be telling.
So
I see what you're saying.
So I mean, we could just completely make this agnostic of any type of ideology or fascist government dictators. Like we can just take the Nazis completely out of it. If you are simply asked a question out of the blue by somebody and you have no idea about their motivations, but you may have a good reason to lie to protect yourself or to protect someone you care about, then in that situation, it would be okay to lie. For instance, I used to trade a little bit of cryptocurrency, so I have a Coinbase account. The problem with having a Coinbase account is that certain data brokers will know you have a Coinbase account, and they will call you on the phone posing as Coinbase support because they're trying to get your crypto wallet, or they're trying to get something out of you in order to take your crypto coins away. So when you get a call out of the blue and somebody goes, "Hi, my name is so-and-so with Coinbase tech support. Do you have a Coinbase account?" I can say, "Nope," and then hang up. Because I don't need to know about their motivations. I don't even know anything about that. I have I can, if I have a reason to believe that I need to protect myself somehow, like for instance, just an unsolicited call out of nowhere asking for personal information, I'm fine with lying with that. That protects me and it protects my loved ones.
And that's where I don't consider what you say to be the lie, only because the foundation lie there is that it's okay for this person to scam you, basically. That's just
so. What is your definition of lie, Joe? I think we have a definition difference here because I mentioned earlier that my definition of a lie, is saying a falsehood with the intent to deceive.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So what's your definition?
Absolutely.
Okay. So when I tell the Nazis no, or I tell the fake,
it would be to deceive with harm.
Deceive with harm.
Because to deceive with harm. You could.
So what would you call? So let's go ahead and just for a second, just adopt that definition. Uttering a falsehood to deceive with the intent of harm, and we'll call that a lie. What do you call my definition? What would you label my falsehood with the intent to deceive, but without the harm? What would you call that?
I would say that could be used to describe a parent telling their child about Santa Claus who's going to come and bring them all these amazing gifts at Christmas. Because
what's the word you would use, though? Yeah, it causes harm. Yeah, I would agree with that too. I agree that causes harm, as Forrest does. But what's the word? Right, what's the word? You drew a comparison, but I'm asking you, what word would you use? Just so we can have a conversation. I want to know what word I need to use for my definition as we use the word lie for yours.
You lost me. Hang on. Let me think about that for a second.
Can we call? I see Eric Richardson. Eric Richardson in the chat called my thing a white lie. Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing. Lie.
Yeah.
It's still a lie to me.
So you could say that.
That's still a lie. That's a type of lie.
Yeah.
So if I tell you I am currently wearing shoes at this moment, if I tell you I am not wearing shoes, that's not any consequence to you. It's not a harmful thing. Doesn't affect you in any fucking way, but it's not true. Am I lying or not?
You're lying, but it is so inconsequential that what's the point? To me,
but it's still a lie. It's still a lie.
But here's the thing: anything can be justified. You know what I'm saying? Anything can be justified. You can justify murder.
I would disagree with that.
I'm not saying that it's going to be reasonable. No, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's going to be reasonable. I'm not going to say the person's going to make any sense, but they can justify it. They can do their best. Like a liar can do their best to justify for whatever it is that they're saying.
Mm.
They're good at it.
But does that make it not a lie anymore?
Characteristic of a liar. You know what I'm saying?
But does that make it not a lie anymore if there's a really good reason for it?
No.
What if the justification is real?
It makes it harder to tell the difference between lies and truths.
Sure, but that still means that they're lies.
Justified.
Right, but if you know something's wrong, if you know something isn't true and you say it anyway, then that's a lie. And it doesn't matter if you're trying to hurt anybody or not, it's a lie. And so if you say something that's... Sorry, go ahead, Jared.
No, I just want to say, and clouding the truth clouding the truth is the point of a lie sometimes. And that could be a good thing, like with our Nazi example, like with the Coinbase example. Like, I want to cloud the truth in some situations because I don't want some people to have an accurate truth in some situations. When the Nazis are knocking at the door, I don't want them to have an accurate truth that there are, in fact, people I'm hiding. So I'm failing to see kind of the argument here, like, because you made the statement in your call here, lying does nothing more than cloud the truth. And I think that's fairly reductive, but sure, why not? Why is it not okay to cloud the truth in some situations?
Because in order to have freedom, you have to have truth.
Do you think there's ever any scenario ever where saying something that isn't true is a good thing to do?
I mean, if you're gonna call, lying about having Jewish people in your basement, if you're gonna call me deceiving that guard, that Nazi SS soldier that comes up, if you're gonna call that a lie, then yes, you can lie.
Yeah.
Pick a different one. Pick a smaller, a simpler example.
You can have a moral lie, and that's almost my point here. Is like how everything can be turned and used as evil, as something bad. And
hey Joe, let's paint another scenario here. Joe, let's really simplify it and paint another scenario here, okay? I have a loved one that is on their deathbed in the hospital. They have mere minutes left to live. All right, I'm having my final conversation. Let's say it's my grandmother. I'm having my final conversation with my grandmother. She's minutes away from dying. She knows I'm an atheist. She's really upset that I'm an atheist. So she asks me, Eric, please find God. And I say, okay, Grandma, I will, to comfort her in her final moments. I'm lying. But I'm not lying with intent to harm. That's still a lie, though, right? I'm telling my grandmother a falsehood with the intent to deceive her, right? But she's about to die in mere moments.
Why not just say, "I'll try"?
Maybe because I want to avoid having her final moments being emotional anguish. Right. Maybe I want her to die
also,
peacefully.
He's not
Maybe
I have either.
Yeah, but see that kind of with me. Like when you I don't care if people lie. I mean, it's human nature, but everybody tells lies. It's just, here's the problem with a lie. When you lie to someone, you're creating this false reality. And once that false reality is created, now we don't know where's the truth anymore. And isn't it better to know?
So we aren't creating false realities. We're creating false impressions, which may keep somebody from accurately understanding reality. And that's the point of certain lies. I don't want the Nazis to have an accurate understanding of the reality in front of them.
And even if we did all tell lies, that's the whole point of the endeavor of science, is to find out the truth about things. So like, even if we were all telling lies, the nature of evidence is the thing that we can then go out and verify and double check and build a new, learn about reality. So like at the end of the day, lying is just a thing that people can do. It's not absolutely necessary. You can't be free without lying or anything like that. Or sorry, you can't be free if you're telling lies, and that freedom is contingent on truth. That's simply not accurate.
I think you don't think so?
Even in a free society, lying is still a thing that can happen. Lying is still a thing that can and sometimes should happen, even in a free society. If you are completely free, that includes the freedom to lie and to be lied to. That's part of freedom. And sometimes, as Eric's pointed out, there are completely innocuous situations where you want to lie to somebody. There's really moral good reasons to lie to somebody. Even something as simple as, I'm going to lie to my friend and say we're just going over to have pizza when actually there's a surprise birthday party to them. I'm lying for something that just is going to make them happy in 10 minutes. It's a lie, and that person's free, and I'm free, and everybody's free. So I think you're conflating things in a way that you really shouldn't be, in order to make this weird, twisted, analogy that just doesn't need to exist.
I was going to say something and I lost it. Damn it. I see what you're saying. Damn it, I forgot what I was saying.
So Joe, we have two messy possibilities in front of us. One is we have a world where no one lies ever, and we can imagine the fallout of that occurring. And we have a world where lies are allowed, and we have some distorted perceptions of reality floating around. So those are the two realities we have to deal with. Which one do we prefer more?
Even as a secular humanist, your search is for the truth, right? So there has to be an inherent value to truth. What is it?
I don't hold on. So I am a secular humanist and I am a skeptic. I do value truth, but I do acknowledge the utility of certain lies in certain situations, because the pragmatic part of my brain clicks on and goes, I would rather not have my grandmother be in emotional agony in her final moments. Yeah. So I'm willing to make that compromise because I know on a whole it makes the world a better place, which feeds into my humanist side.
Okay, but that's in that regard. And in that regard, I'm not going to argue with you. But how about in this regard? You know, we need a certain amount of people to live in poverty. That way, the middle class is encouraged to work hard. They have a class to look down on, keeps the economy running nice and smooth. But, you know, 10, 15% of the population has to live in poverty in order to
now you're just describing the lies of capitalism.
Yeah, I'm confused how this is related.
Yeah, no, that's a bad lie. So, like, that's the thing. You just discovered a thing called moral relativism, is that sometimes things are good and sometimes things are bad. There are good lies and there's bad lies. Lies are just things, and sometimes they can be good and sometimes they can be bad. You just described a bad lie, and we've described some good lies, and they're all lies, and that's just how it works. So, yeah, sure, it clouds the truth. Sometimes that's a good thing to do. Sometimes absolute truth in an individual scenario isn't a good thing, isn't a moral thing. And overall, yeah, we seek the truth about the universe, and we want to know more true things than false things. But that doesn't take away the utility of lying sometimes.
The universe doesn't really affect us. I mean, we could get the truth on how a black hole forms and how.
Where do you live, Joe?
What's that?
Where do you live?
North Carolina. Actually,
where is North Carolina?
I mean, I was born and raised.
Where is North Carolina?
Illinois. North Carolina, the South.
Yeah.
South of where?
And the South is.
I don't know. It's north of South Carolina. I'll tell you that. It's just above Georgia. You know, there's Florida. There's
what
Georgia.
Country?
America.
Joe, do you live in the universe?
Do I sound native?
Joe, do you live in the universe?
Do I sound foreign?
That's what I'm getting at. Like, you live in the universe. So for you to say it's of no consequence, like, what are you talking about?
You know, Bible thumper. Well, because I'm just saying, not that it's completely inconsequential. What I'm saying is it doesn't like. Well, you can say it does impact our lives because we take that knowledge and we further mankind with it. I understand that.
No, every single thing you do is interacting with the laws of the universe. You calling us right now is because of laws about electricity and about like how the internet works. That's physics, and the fact that you ate food today, that's biology and chemistry. The fact that your brain is running right now is electrochemistry. Like, that you live in the universe is of consequence to you, and everything that you do and think and be and exist, all of existence is of consequence because it's in the universe. So when I say we're learning about the universe, I don't mean we're learning like astrophysics. I don't mean like we're learning what stars are out there. I mean we're learning about the place we live and what the rules are, so that we can live better. The reason why you're not eating arsenic right now is because of advancements in biology and chemistry that told us that shit's not okay. And that's why you don't use arsenic-based makeup that killed a lot of people a couple hundred years ago, because we learned the shit. Because that's how the universe worked. We learn more about the universe, and now we are safer because of it. So, like, that's when we're talking about finding truth. With it, that when we're talking about truth, that's what we're talking about. But when we're talking about lies, that's a very broad thing. And it doesn't mean that we're going to tell the absolute truth all the time. I'm not going to lie to somebody and say that arsenic is good, unless maybe they're a fucking psychopath mega murderer that's up here, you know, killing thousands and millions of people, and they come to me and they're like, yo, should I drink this arsenic? I might be like, try it. Who knows? And that would be a good lie that kills that person and saves millions of lives. That's moral relativism. That's what it's all about.
You're just saying try it.
Yes, I could lie and say, yes, arsenic is actually quite good for you and you should drink it and it'll make you live forever. And then that guy dies and millions of people survive. Is it a good lie? That's a trolley problem. That's what we're at now. Is that so? Like, it just, dude.
Okay, so here's
I don't know.
Here's my question. Where
this is your last question. We have other calls.
Where does? All right. Damn, bro. Where do you draw the line at? It's a moral lie where it turns into a immoral lie.
outcome? Are you doing something right? Are you saving lives, protecting people, protecting their feelings? It's about compassion and empathy and humanity.
How you define good? How you define these things?
I can answer it for you right now.
Well, wait. Okay.
It's based on human well-being and the well-being of other sentient creatures if there's the possibility to do that. There's no morality for a rock. A rock is just a rock. It doesn't think. But in terms of a human being, I know what's going to cause them harm, and I know what's going to make their lives better. And so something that causes undue, unnecessary harm with no benefit, I would generally call immoral. However, that doesn't happen all the time because there's things like surgery where you are harming a person in order to get them actually healthy and make their life better. So there's relativity there as well. But overall, my general moral compass for morality is about human well-being and suffering.
Yeah. And Joe, I'm in agreement with Forrest there completely. I'm going to abstract it a little bit just so it's kind of more generalized. But the way that I determine the difference between a moral and immoral lie is a preponderance of the good and bad outcome that comes from it.
That's a great way to say
not all lies are going to give you not all lies are going to give you completely bad results. Not all lies are going to completely give you good results. There's going to be a balance there, and I have to evaluate that balance to see what's my preferred outcome. Those preferred outcomes are based on the goals that I have subjectively chosen at the basis of my moral system. So I have subjectively chosen goals, things I want to see happen in the world, or things I want to see avoid happening. And then I determine whether lies are moral or immoral based off of that. So that's kind of just the whole thing in a package, why I think certain lies are good and certain lies are bad, and why I think certain things are bad and certain things are good.
Yep.
Understood. I'm going to think about this a little bit more. I know I had something
sounds good, Joe.
to say, and I can't think what I get another call. Talk to you guys later.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, thanks, Joe. You have a good day.
It was crazy. That call went for 20 minutes, and we covered absolutely nothing. Amazing.
Well, we got to a point where Joe said, "I'm going to take this and think about it," and I'm happy with that.
And you know what? I think that was a lie. I'm going to call it. We've got a couple calls left here, and we've got a little bit of time. We got about 30 minutes left on this show. Remember, stay after the show for about 30 more minutes, and you'll get to hear the preview of the podcast thing. We're going to go to Jed, pronouns he, him, calling in from Cavernous Assholes. We're going to try again. Once argue for the existence of God. Jed, you are on the line. Can we hear you this time? Jed going once. Jed going twice.
Unmute that microphone, Jed.
We're dropping Jed. Yeah, sorry, we're dropping Jed. It's we've tried twice. I've seen them call him in a few times. It's not working. I'm sorry. If you're seriously trying to get a hold of us, it can't happen on our end. I'm sorry. We've got another one though. We've got Jackie, pronouns he, him, calling in from Miserly Snakes. Bunch of serpents trying to pinch their pennies with fingers they don't have. We've got Jackie, who wants to make an existentialist case for following God. Jackie, you are on the line.
What was that? Miserly snakes?
Yeah, a bunch of snakes that don't want to spend money. How crazy is that?
Yeah.
But you know what? I've never met a snake that was willing to spend money.
Hey, the snake economy is pretty bad these days, so I don't blame them.
Yeah.
The state is Mississippi.
Crazy.
But,
I'm still hearing. Jackie, I'm still hearing miserly snakes. I'm sorry. No, go ahead. We're joking around here, Jackie.
I called into the show previously, and they said that for future reference, I should disclose this. I'm 16. If that's any age concern for the show policy.
That's okay. But yeah, we're gonna probably drop fewer F-bombs with you, but that's about it.
So I would like to make the case from an existentialist perspective for following God. So philosophically, so you come from an atheistic perspective.
Yeah, we don't believe that a God exists.
Yeah, I come from a naturalist perspective.
For sure.
You would be more like a Nietzschean existentialist.
No, not really. Not. I mean, I like some things that Nietzsche said, but I'm not like super into Nietzsche. I am a nihilist, if that's what you're asking me, but I'm not an existential nihilist the way that Nietzsche was.
No, Nietzsche was not a nihilist.
I thought he was. I thought he was like the father. Maybe I'm wrong. Hold on, let me check.
So,
Nietzsche is a self-professed nihilist, but he took a long time to admit it. He apparently had some radical nihilist perspective. This is just from what here I'm getting on like Cambridge University's website about it.
Well, the interpretation I've heard from Nietzscheans is that he believed in overcoming nihilism through pursuit of will to power. But anyway, so the existentialists
Who knows?
were divided with atheists like Nietzsche and Sartre who believe that human beings should create their own meaning. But I would believe that meaning, but I'm more of the philosophy of being than of becoming. So the philosophy of becoming says that things are in a process of constant changing of their identity, but I would disagree. I do believe there is such a thing as an eternal being, and I believe that as Aristotle's unmoved mover. And you know Kierkegaard?
Yeah.
What would your response be to Søren Kierkegaard's argument for following God as a solution to the problems posed by existentialism?
So I'm not a philosopher; I'm a biologist, but I am familiar with these names. So like you're going to lose me a little bit if we're trying to like dig into like specific arguments from specific guys, because I know who Kierkegaard is. I don't remember a lot of what I remember a little bit. Kierkegaard, if I remember correctly, he was the guy who was very close to Stoicism. Yeah, but he was very close to Stoicism, but he wasn't quite there, if I remember correctly. And he was, I think he was a Christian, and I remember he was existentialist, which existentialism is just nihilism with extra steps. You take the nihilist perspective of there is no meaning, and then you're like, well, I'm going to find some meaning and make my own. And I'm probably oversimplifying that because, again, I'm not a fucking philosopher. I'm a biologist. Nietzschean interpretation of meaning is that meaning is internal. It comes from human beings pursuing will to power. So let's do this, Jackie. Jackie, hold on just one second. Eric, are you any well versed in philosophy? Do you have a philosophy background?
No, I'm still at the very beginning of my philosophy journey. But
okay,
now we're talking about
authors
profession that I have not. My profession or Jackie's?
What were we saying?
Yours, Eric. Like, what is the thing, the expertise you're bringing in here that you would like to stick to? Because I'm sticking to biology. Where's your?
I'm going to stick with just my worldview and the way that I've thought it out. I have not studied these philosophers in any great depth, so I can't really discuss anything they said. So
perfect. Yeah. So Jackie, that's where you're meeting us now. You have two people here who are not trained in philosophy, who did not like. I studied it in my undergrad in order to get my first degree, but like that's just where I left it. So if you're talking about the differences between these different guys' philosophies and ideals, and like throwing out different terminology that's a little bit above our pay grade in this area, we can't help very much. There are other great people out there though, like J. Mike, Secular Rarity, that actually do philosophy talk, and that's what they can focus on a lot more. For us, I'm happy to have this conversation with you, but you need to get quickly to the point of what you're actually arguing for, because we're not going to be able to get into the weeds.
So I guess the thing is, I believe that meaning. So I believe meaning is partially external and internal. So I do understand the perspective that we create our own meaning, but I do believe that within the universe, because of the laws of the universe scientifically, I believe it's more likely than not that a creator had to create the universe, and that creator, a relationship with that creator gives us meaning, or at least is part of a source of meaning, right? Part is internal, part is external.
Okay, so those are two different things. So we're going to separate them, and we're only going to go with the one that deals with the creator. Because creating internal meaning, I can sit here and talk to you about that all day, where it's going to get us absolutely nowhere. But in terms of the other one, you said that part of the meaning comes from getting in touch with the creator, and you started that sentence by saying that, I'm paraphrasing here, but so correct me if I'm paraphrasing too much. You said that there has to be something that created the universe. Is that what you said? Am I fair in saying that?
I don't know how to use the phrasing. I would say my belief is the most likely explanation for the existence of our universe is an unmoved mover. That's my understanding of physics.
Okay, and you mentioned, I think you mentioned in the last one that like scientifically speaking, that's what you're pointing at. And so like that's where I want to understand. You're saying that this is something that has some scientific backing, and it seems the most likely to you that there is a creator to the universe, and getting in touch with that creator is therefore meaning. We can leave the meaning on the table. Really what we're just talking about here is there a creator of the universe or not? And you think that there is, and that science points in that direction. Is that where we're now talking? Like, is that a fair summary of what you're coming at?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I study and teach science for a living. Again, I'm a biologist, not a physicist, but I know a little bit of physics. So maybe there's something we can talk about here. What specifically are you talking about when you say that there is some science that's pointing you to the belief that it's more reasonable to believe in some sort of creator?
So, to my understanding of the Newtonian physics, there's a principle that matter and energy, energy cannot be created or destroyed. And because the universe is made of energy, I believe there had to be something that preceded the universe that had to create the universe. And from our perspective, anything that could create the entire known universe would be called a god. Now, how that God intervened in terms of which religion is true, that's a separate conversation.
Did you just say?
Separate thing.
We got a lot there already.
You just said that the universe is made of energy, right? Did I hear you right when you said that?
Yeah, energy is a part of the universe.
Energy is a part of the universe, and energy can neither be created nor destroyed. And then you go on to say, but something must have preceded it to create it or set it in motion. I'm seeing a conflict here in
energy.
But you said energy cannot be created nor destroyed. But you're saying energy cannot be created nor destroyed, and the next sentence you're saying something created the energy.
Yeah, the thing that created the energy is not itself a part of the universe. I'm saying it's a metaphysical.
But you said energy cannot be created. You said it. Hold on. So you're giving us a straight contradiction here. I'm sorry, Forrest. I've latched on to this. Fine. You're telling us that energy cannot be created, and then you're telling me how energy is created. Do you see the contradiction here?
Energy cannot.
Do you see why I look at that and I go, what?
No, you're not. You keep interrupting me when I answer you. So please let me answer you and do not interrupt me. Within this universe, energy cannot be created. But I believe that a metaphysical entity that precedes the universe could create the energy. So that's a law within the universe, but not external to the universe.
All right.
So it's kind of like the law of biogenesis, where like life can't create non-life, non-life cannot create life, except for that time that it did. Yeah, I get that. Here's my issue: is you said this is your understanding of Newtonian physics. You know that there's other parts of physics that are non-Newtonian, though, right?
Yeah. But again, I mean, I'm 16, so I'm still,
That's fine. That's fine. Like that's why we're talking about this. Is that you said Newtonian physics? Yes. The first law, I believe it's the first law of thermodynamics, is that energy cannot be created or destroyed. That is Newtonian physics. That's the fundamentals. Quantum mechanics, all of quantum mechanics goes against Newtonian physics. And it's it is real physics that are like have real implications on the small and the large scale, tell us a lot about the universe and how it works, and they don't behave in Newtonian ways. Does that change anything that you're thinking?
If you could elaborate on how that relates to my point, then yes. It's just I don't know anything about quantum physics. I've heard of it.
That's fine. It's just the point that I'm making is that like you started with Newtonian physics, and I want to understand if that was a really meaningful thing that you were saying, or if you were just saying the word Newtonian because it's a word that precedes physics in your head. Like, and that's what I understand. Do you mean all physics proves a God, or just the physics that you're specifically speaking about, or is it just your understanding of physics at this point in your life? Because there's a big difference to your argument between those three.
The third category.
Okay, that's fine. That's totally fine. I'm not trying to talk down to you on that. I just want to know what we're actually talking about. So, like, if your understanding of physics at this point points to a God, let's play a game then. Let's say we don't know absolutely anything about the universe, about physics in general. We have no flipping idea. We are cavemen. We don't know anything about anything. Does that then give us a reason to believe that there's some sort of supernatural entity out there?
From the perspective of a caveman who doesn't know anything about the universe, then pondering a philosophical question like God would be pointless.
It wouldn't be.
At least
because even if you don't know anything, there's still a reason to ask questions. That's how we got to where we are today, is by people asking questions.
Okay,
so you're saying
they would eventually learn. Yeah. So if you're a caveman, eventually the more you learn about the world, that leads you to believe that energy cannot be created or destroyed, and then that leads you to believe in God. Yeah,
that's not what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is you and I can get into the physics of things and talk about why, physically speaking, there's really not a great reason to believe in a God or anything like that. I'm not a physicist, so it's not really useful. And you're 16 and don't know a lot about physics, so it's not really useful. So that's not a productive conversation. I think it might be interesting for you to take into account the fact that like the vast majority of physicists are also atheists. So the people who actually study the physics that you're using as a basis for your belief don't agree with your belief. That might be telling. But I think what's more important to do is just to dissect what you're talking about here and say, if we didn't know where the universe came from, we didn't know anything about the Big Bang, we didn't know about matter and energy, we didn't know shit, would that then be a reason for us to start prescribing magical reasoning behind the universe and saying, oh, well, there's this guy, and this guy did it? Is that a reasonable jump to make?
If we didn't know about the laws of physics or about the Big Bang, then no, I don't see what. I understand the reason why a person comes to believe there's a God.
Okay, so then why are you doing that with?
But wait,
why are you doing that then with the knowledge? Because what you're presenting us here is this kind of weird God of the gaps almost. You're saying, well, we know that the universe had this beginning, and we know that there's this matter and energy and stuff. It had to come from somewhere, and so it was a guy. And it was this guy named God. And that's what you're giving us. And I'm saying, even if you didn't know any of that, you just know the universe exists. You don't have to bring physics into it at all. All you know is that you woke up and here's the universe and you're in it. Is there a reason for you to then say, well, this had to come from somewhere and that it was probably a guy? Or is it more reasonable to say, I don't know where this came from, period. I hope to find out someday. That's the end of the statement.
No, I just gave you the logical through line of the ideology, which is my understanding of energy cannot be created, matter destroyed. The logical conclusion.
Jackie, I'm sorry to interrupt you again, but you're missing what I'm saying. It doesn't matter what your understanding of physics is. The question that I'm asking is completely separated from that. Your understanding of physics is irrelevant. Physics as a whole, the entire field of physics is irrelevant. You're saying, here's my understanding of science, and it kind of points to a God because I'm missing this chunk. That I don't know where the matter came from. I don't know where the energy came from. You don't need any of that. I'm asking you, if you didn't know anything, would it be reasonable to then come to the point where I say, okay, well, then there must be a God?
You're creating a hypothetical, but that hypothetical, why is that hypothetical relevant to our conversation?
Because
Jackie, the point
that Forrest is what you. Sorry, if you let me. Just, I'm sorry. It's fine. It's fine. If you're going to say something I'm not, please also say it. But the reason why it's important is because what you're giving us is this kind of God of the gaps fallacy. It's the same reason when people call and they say, okay, well, if you believe in the Big Bang, what happened before the Big Bang? Who started the Big Bang? Who is the unmoved mover? Right? We get this call all the time. And the answer that I give all the time.
That's a perfectly logical question.
It's not, because the issue is we don't, the Big Bang was the beginning of space and time. Time started at the Big Bang and space began expanding. It's the expansion of the entire universe. So for you to ask what's going on before that and what caused that, you are asking what happened at a time before time was a thing in a place that wasn't inside the universe. You're asking me what happened before the word before meant anything in a place that wasn't anywhere. I don't know what that means. That's a crazy question to ask. It doesn't mean there isn't an answer. Maybe there is, but the question doesn't logically make sense. And so I don't even know how to begin answering it. So what I'm trying to get at here is that rather than going down that dead end, where we get to a point where we're trying to debate the meaning of physics, which isn't going to make any sense because you're a high school student and I'm a biologist who isn't a physicist. There's no reason for us to do that. Rather than doing that, take physics out of the equation and say we don't know anything at all about physics, about the beginning of the universe, about where planets or stars or life comes from. We don't know anything. In that blank slate state, is it reasonable to begin with the assumption that magic is real and there's a guy who whipped up the universe? Is that a reasonable thing to do?
No, but I never claimed magic is real.
I agree. Well, you did, because you said that there's a guy who made the universe in a way that isn't within the laws of physics. So that's the definition of magic to me.
God.
Yeah. So Jackie,
God is not an anthropomorphic entity, right? I just heard a long monologue. I was my time to respond. Can I please have that time?
Go ahead.
So, what you're saying is an interesting point. It's a point I've heard from other atheists that basically the problem is I'm trying to answer a question which can't be answered by our current models of reality and time, so we should not assume there is that there isn't. The question is a matter of definition, though. Definitionally, if energy cannot be created,
Jackie, you're breaking up like crazy. Do you have us on a headset or something?
No, you're on my phone. You're on my cell phone.
Is it on speaker?
Yes.
Okay, please take it off speaker because it's really choppy and I didn't understand a word you just said.
Is this better?
I hope so. Yeah, go for it. So please repeat what you were just saying. I didn't hear a single word of it.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's just a matter of definition. Anything that is the catalyst for the existence of our known universe would be called God by definition.
I disagree.
Yeah. If we were to operate under those definitions, then we can just call the Big Bang God, and that doesn't really get us anywhere.
Precisely.
We're just swapping labels.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. You can just call physics God. It doesn't mean anything. So, like, the word God kind of bears some baggage with it.
Okay. What other entity has the power to create the universe that we wouldn't call God?
Why do you say entity?
You're begging the question there.
What entity created the planet Earth? There was no entity. That's just how gravity works. We know how accretion disks work. We know how planets form. There's no entity required. So if I say what entity created the Earth, it's a weird question that doesn't really have a lot of meaning. So you can say, what caused the Big Bang? And my answer, as I just mentioned, would be, I don't know. I don't even know how to answer that question or what that question actually even means. But I don't need to ascribe an entity to it because we have yet to find anything else in the natural world that requires an entity to come into existence.
A more honest question would be what explains the Big Bang, or what explains X. Instead of what entity explains, ask just what explains.
Precisely. And my answer would be the same. I don't know. And I hope to know someday. I don't have to then assume, well, I don't have an answer, so it was probably a guy.
But even if we did have an answer for some sort of universe that existed before the Big Bang, you'd have to go back some timeline. Like the very notion of existence itself, what caused existence to exist?
Sure. That's a great question. That's a great question. And we don't have a great answer for it, or at least I don't. But again, because I don't have an answer, I'm going to answer with, I don't know. And I'm going to leave it right there. And I'm going to hope that some physicist comes along and figures it out. I'm not going to say, I don't know, therefore a guy did it. It was just some guy.
And Jackie, your question there, what causes existence to exist? So let's put aside any problems that might be baked into that question. And let's just say that's a legitimate question. Okay. And the whole reason we were talking about cavemen, 100% ignorant cavemen before, and what justifications they have to jump to certain conclusions, and how I think you admitted that basically if we were those cavemen, we were 100% ignorant of any scientific facts or any observations of the universe. We don't have any justification to jump to a God did it. And the point with that being is that as we've built our knowledge and as we built up explanations, those gaps in our knowledge get smaller and smaller. But with those gaps shrinking and becoming harder and harder to answer, for instance, with your question, what caused existence to exist, we still don't have the justification to fill in whatever we want. Think of it this way.
Precisely.
Think of it like a jigsaw. Think of it like a jigsaw puzzle. Okay. In caveman state, we have not looked at any piece of the jigsaw puzzle. There's a blank table in front of us. We have no justification to say this puzzle will render us a vase of flowers, or it'll be a Ferrari, or it'll be the Empire State Building. We have zero justification to make those declarations. Time passes, cavemen develop into what we are now, and we've added pieces to that jigsaw puzzle, and we keep on adding. And now we have littler gaps. It's no longer a completely empty puzzle. We have a really good idea what's going on there. And every piece we've put down so far has been natural. There's natural explanations for all these things. We have a few pieces missing. We may have a lot of pieces missing, but we have some pieces missing. You're pointing in one of those holes and saying, what caused existence to exist? And you want to put God into that picture, when it's obviously a picture of a vase of flowers, or it's obviously a Ferrari? Like we have nothing to indicate to us that the pattern's going to change. I could be wrong. There could be a God out there. God could become a piece of that puzzle. But until that actually happens, and the pattern we've been seeing, we can't really reasonably expect that to happen. And that's why we are hesitant to jump to these explanations that break our pattern and we have no justification for. We could be wrong, but we have no justification to do that right now.
I mean, but what you're saying is that so far everything we've observed has been part of a mechanistic physical universe. But the notion of why existence exists itself is a metaphysical, not a physical claim. You're conflating the two. It's like asking, how does a car operate? That's a scientific claim. But asking a question about, existence, that's metaphysical, and God is a metaphysical entity. He's not present in the physical world. In fact, God has physical presence is idolatry.
So that means you're putting together two jigsaw puzzles, one to talk about the physical existence, the other one to talk about metaphysics. So our analysis of one puzzle doesn't tell us anything about the other puzzle. Like, I don't see how you can make that jump there, because now if you want to say, well, we're not talking about the physical, we're talking about metaphysical. Sure. You're either dealing with the same puzzle, you're dealing with two different puzzles, the same question or two different questions. But again, your gap in your knowledge, no matter how big or small, doesn't give you justification to go to what entity did this. It should always be what explains this, because what doesn't disqualify anything out of hand? What doesn't? What's the honest? What is the explanation? Is the most honest question to ask, because you aren't disqualifying anything out of hand.
Right.
Your God could be in there,
and I believe the most.
You can't.
And I believe that.
Go ahead.
And I believe the thing that would fill in the gaps with the fewest logical assumptions is an eternal, all-powerful God.
Right, but that's not true.
Big assumption in my book.
Like that's
a massive assumption in my book.
We have a universe where every single thing is described by natural processes, and you're coming in here and saying, well, we don't know where the natural processes come from, therefore I'm going to bring in this new supernatural process, this new realm of possibility where this guy lives in the place outside of everything that we know to exist.
It's not a guy.
Who is it?
It's not a guy.
It's just some guy. Who?
It's an eternal, all-powerful entity.
So just a thing that has it. Guy. I didn't say it was anthropomorphic. I just called it a guy. Just some guy, because that's what it is.
Guy is like inherently anthropomorphic term.
I don't know, man. I call like all sorts of stuff guy all the time. I pick up a pen. I'm like, look at this guy. I'm just saying it doesn't matter what term we're using. You're giving a causal agent the responsibility for the universe. Does this non-anthropomorphic entity have a mind?
It is capable of self-understanding.
Okay, so it's thinking.
And make decisions?
What was that?
Does it think and make decisions? Does it think and make decisions?
Yes.
It's a guy.
Okay. It's a guy. I don't know what you're telling me, but like I'm not saying it's a man. I'm saying it's just some guy, and like but it doesn't matter what words we're using. You're still the fact of the matter is you're giving us an explanation rooted in something that we don't have any actual evidence for, about something that we don't have any reason to believe actually exists, and that if it does exist has massive moral implications and a lot to answer for. You're adding a tremendous amount of assumptions and a tremendous amount of baggage to your claim, rather than just saying, I don't know.
Just let me ask you this. Have you ever taken any scientific methodology course in college?
Very yes.
So scientific methodology, there's a difference between a logical argument from deduction and induction. I'm making more of an argument from deduction and induction. So I'm not presenting evidence and going from there. I'm saying, these are the negative attributes of and filling in those gaps. It's more of a deductive argument than an inductive argument, if that makes sense.
Right. And that's why it's not scientific. because in science we use induction. We only use deduction at the end of the line. We start with induction where we say, here's the facts on the ground. Here's what we know. What model can we build from that information? And so, like, if you did that, you would see that there is no piece of the puzzle that is even slightly remotely indicative of any kind of higher power. So you have no reason to assume that it's there. And but even without it, the whole my caveman analogy earlier.
But I'm using a deductive epistemology. What I'm saying is,
even with deduction, you have no reason to make the leap that you're making. You're saying, well, I don't know of a way that this thing could happen, and I don't know why this thing is happening. Therefore, it's probably just some guy. And like, that's a huge leap. That's not a deductive reasoning. That's just leaping and jumping in and like putting in your worldview that you want to be real. You don't have any evidence for a god. You don't have any evidence of any supernatural realm outside of the universe. You don't have any positive evidence for any of these things. You're just saying, I don't know what's here, so it's a guy. And that's not how logic works.
So, Jackie, I know you're 16 and you're still in school, so it's okay if your answer is no to this, but do you understand what like a logical syllogism is with premises and a conclusion and how it's both valid and sound? Like, are you familiar with those concepts?
I've heard the term syllogism, but I couldn't exactly define it for you.
Okay, no worries. So, I mean, when you get into college level courses, one of your level 100 logic or philosophy classes will go into a formal logic, symbolic logic, stuff like that. But basically, if you think you have a deductive line of reasoning that takes our current known facts and you can lead to that some entity exists, which me and Forrest jovially call a guy, but you can call it whatever you want. You should be able to formalize that in an argument where you have premise 1, premise 2, all the way down to premise n, and then conclusion, this entity exists and is responsible for the universe that we observe. You should be able to formalize that in a way that is both valid and sound. And I understand you're probably not at that point where you can do that yet because you're still familiarizing yourselves with the topic. But if you really think that you are deductively reaching this conclusion and that your logic is sound, then formalize it into a paper and then show it to us. Because then we can start looking at it and going, okay, let's really dig into this argument. Let's really see these premises are true and see that if it actually does lead to the conclusion. And you might take a few years. If you familiarize yourself with those concepts now, there's lots of YouTube videos out there to teach you those types of things, or wait till you get to that college level class if college is in your future. I welcome you to do that. I would love to see a formalized syllogism for what you're saying here.
Well, so I understand. So what you're saying is a syllogism is when you present your multiple premises that you're going to be operating off of, and then coming to a conclusion based off those premises.
Yes, it's a logical argument, formalized on paper, where we can read it and analyze it. Yeah.
Well, so the first premise I would operate off of is that everything which currently exists had something which preceded it that caused it to exist.
I already have an issue.
Eventually had to.
Yeah, we already have an issue with premise 1 because that's the whole thing about the Big Bang is we don't know what was before that, or if the question of what was before that is even a question that's possible to ask. So like immediately I can say that like pretty much everything I see around me had a precursor, sure. But if you're talking about like the universe as a whole, I don't know how to answer that question properly. So I can't accept premise 1.
Yeah.
But that's the premise which all other scientific experiments are based off of.
No, it's not.
If you see somebody who's dead, you don't assume that, it would most likely you would assume they either died because something caused them to die, like they tripped, or somebody killed them. But both of those are examples of a cause.
Right. Okay. So if you're saying that like scientific experiments are based on cause and effect and things like that, sure. But if you're saying like all of science is predicated on this, again, we go back to the beginning of the universe and we don't know what that means to ask before. And there's different physicists, different cosmologists that are going to give you different answers depending on what their specialty is. So like, and again, can't stress it enough. I'm a biologist. I'm not equipped to answer any of those questions. I study life. I study evolution. I study humans. I don't study any of that. I just know about it because of college courses that I took when I was getting, in there. And so like, that's that's not my expertise. If you had a physicist on the line, which I believe we have some physicists who do this show, they could probably answer that specific question a lot more coherently for you. But again, the point of the caveman analogy was to say, even if we didn't know anything about it, there wouldn't be a reason to create some supernatural entity to fill in that gap. Even if I agreed with you, every single effect has a cause. If I say here's an effect and I don't know the cause for it, I don't get to fill in that gap with magic. I have to say I don't know the cause, so I don't know the cause. And I hope to find out someday. And my producer just let me know that Aron Adair, who is a physicist, is on tomorrow night. So if you call the show tomorrow, I believe it's Skeptalk tomorrow, starting at 6 p.m. Central Standard, you'll have an actual physicist there who can answer that question for you.
So I think I'm understanding what you're saying. So your point is, because of Einstein's theory of relativity and the notion that space and time are correlated, if you're going back before the Big Bang, because that was before space expanded, the very notion of a timeline, you can't really, and cause and effect that comes from a timeline can't really be explored.
Long and short of it, yeah. I mean, that's a little bit more complicated than I would have read it, but yeah, that's basically the long and short of it. Yes, you're asking what happened before time started in a space that didn't exist as space, and I don't know what that means.
And we actually aren't even at a point where we can't examine. Go ahead, Jackie.
The Big Bang was the expansion of space, but not the creation of space, right? So even before the Big Bang happened, there was still space. It was just infinitely smaller than it is now, but that space still existed.
Sure, but like you're talking about a guy who lives outside of there that was able to cause that and create that, because that can't come from nowhere, right? So you're asking about a guy who lives outside of space in a place where time doesn't exist, so there is no cause and effect, who then created time and space and cause and effect like that. What does that mean? I don't understand what you're asking me here. And even if I didn't know anything about any of this, sorry, go ahead.
The response to that would be, it's, again, a metaphysics versus physics discussion. God, if he's a metaphysical entity, doesn't have the same bounds that a physical entity like you or I have. Like, the same scientific processes don't necessarily apply to him.
Okay, Can you demonstrate any example of anything that doesn't behave under the same laws of physics that we operate under?
Nothing within the physical universe that I can demonstrate operates under that.
And so you're saying that like this, that your actual argument here, as I'm hearing it, is if there's a guy who doesn't obey the laws of physics, then he could do this stuff. And therefore he did. And that's not how logic flows. You have to first demonstrate that the guy is real and that the place that the guy lives is real and that he can create the universe, and then that he did create the universe. And then we're going to talk about how and why he made such a terrible universe. Like that, those are all the line of questions. You can't just say, if this exists, then it does. That's like me saying that if there are gnomes under my house, then maybe their circulatory system is made up of cotton candy. Like that doesn't, I haven't actually said anything, and I can't now try to prove to you that gnomes exist. I have to first go out and demonstrate the reality of the claim that I'm making. So for you to say, I don't know where the universe came from, and therefore, if there was a guy who didn't behave by laws of physics, then he would have been able to do it. So he does, and he did, and that's how it works. That's just saying if, and then making the if into a yes.
I'm saying if one of the premises of physics is that everything has cause and effect, and the universe exists, and the universe would be bound by such cause and effect, there had to be something that was not bound by cause and effect for it to cause the universe. I'm saying I don't understand how you can have a completely physical universe that is based off of cause and effect.
Okay, then you don't understand. And that's where your argument should stop. And you should go talk to a physicist about it and see what they know. And if nobody knows, then you should go and study it and try to be the one to figure it out. But what you're doing is saying, I don't understand this, and I can make up a magical way that it works, and therefore that magical thing is real. And that's not appropriate. You shouldn't be doing that. You wouldn't do that for anything else. Again, that's what my caveman analogy was all about. If we didn't know anything at all about science in any way, You wouldn't be doing that for everything else. You're just doing it right now because you know the limit of your understanding, and it makes you uncomfortable to not know a thing. That's what makes a great scientist. There's lots of shit that I don't know. There's more things that I don't know than I do by a lot. And I hate that. And that's why I study what I do. That's why I try to learn new stuff. But I don't get to say, you know what? I don't know where this species came from. Probably magic. And then leave it there. I have to go get positive evidence for what's actually going on and back up my claims. I can't just say, it was just some guy. That doesn't make sense. It's not good enough.
What you're saying is that cause and effect isn't an intrinsic principle of the physical universe?
That's not what I just said at all.
I know, but it's the conclusion of what you'd believe would be, what I'm saying is my premise would be any physical universe which is bound by cause and effect had to have something that preceded it. I'm saying that's a definitional thing.
Right. The law of biogenesis in biology is that all life comes from other life. Cell theory in biology says that all cells come from pre-existing cells. So there's two laws here, one law and one theory in biology that say that only living things make other living things. How did life start? Do I now get to say, well, life's here and it wasn't always here, so therefore it was some guy made life?
But that would therefore mean that you believe there is an exception to the cause and effect. There's at least one exception to the cause and effect.
There's an exception to the rule of biogenesis, and there's an exception to cell theory, and this is where these things start. And we're learning more about that, and we're trying to understand it. Here we have the Big Bang, which is the beginning of space and time, and we don't know even what the question of what was before that could possibly even mean. And we're learning about it. And we're trying to figure it out. I'm not saying that there's an exception to the rule of cause and effect. I'm not saying that there's something in the universe that is causeless. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying, I don't know. And I hope to find out one day. And I'm not saying, because I don't know, it was just some guy. That's a massive assumption. That's a massive stretch. And even if I did that, and I said, yeah, there's a guy, well, then where'd the guy come from? Does the guy have a cause? Surely that guy didn't just pop into existence. Who made the guy? And where's his parents at? And fuck them. Like there's the whole thing there. It's just, it's logical nonsense that you wouldn't use for anything else in your life ever. And you're just putting it in here because it's more comfortable. And I don't know why you would do that.
Okay. I mean, I think we might have to be wrapping it up soon because we've mostly covered the track. I guess the fundamental disagreement boils down to if there is a cause and effect, if cause and effect is a universal principle of the universe, this means there would have to be some first cause, and that first cause couldn't be caused by something else because then you have to see what caused that. So unless you accept, an logical infinity or physical infinity as a possibility, which I don't. So I think this was a somewhat productive conversation. I think I would like to call him tomorrow, but I would say that
because what you're, I hope you do call him tomorrow because so far, what you've presented here is it's like Jordan Peterson level of arguments for God. And it's not, you know what I mean? It's that kind of thing.
I actually really like Jordan Peterson. Oh,
I super don't. And I encourage you to double think that, but that's for a conversation for another time. But I like people who say things that are backed up by evidence and have a reasonable, backing behind them. But that's just me. Yeah, I also have disagreements with him. When he says things that are just factually wrong and then makes up really crappy arguments for God for no fucking reason. But that's where we're at is what I'm saying. Is this is that kind of level of just I don't know. And so probably there was a guy. And what we're comfortable saying on this side of the table is just, I don't know. I just don't know. And I hope to know someday. That'd be cool. But as of right now, I don't know. And we're learning.
If it's not a loaded question, if you could wrap up the percentage-wise probability, what do you think is the probability that there's a God versus there's not a God? If you could put that in percentage terms.
I'm not a statistician. I wouldn't know how to calculate that. What I can say is that I don't have any evidence for a God. And yeah, I don't have any evidence for a God, so I don't have a reason to believe in one. And if there is such a thing as a God, I don't like him because the universe that he's made is horrific. And any God that would create a world like this is a monster. And especially any God that would then want worship for creating a world like this is a stupid monster. So I don't have a reason to believe that there is a God. And if you can demonstrate that there is a God, I'll admit it. And then I'll still say that God's an asshole. And that's where we're at on this side.
Yeah. I think Jackie, I think we're both fairly similar. Forrest and I versus you, we're fairly similar in that we have unanswered questions about the origins and explanations why certain things happened, why the Big Bang occurred. Forrest and I stick with just having a question mark there because we don't have enough data and evidence to make any formal declarations about it. You're taking that question mark and saying, well, an entity must have caused this, and I'm going to call that entity a metaphysical being, God. And those are leaps that we are just not willing to take because we don't have any justification for them. I guess maybe one thing to ponder, Jackie, is since you're looking at the metaphysical and going, I can identify something in the metaphysical here known as God, because I have these unanswered questions here in physical reality. Ask yourself, can you identify anything else outside of that God, but that's in that metaphysical realm? Like, can you make any declarations about anything other than your God in that realm? And if you can't, which I'm assuming you can't, because I would really love to hear any justifications for anything outside of the God and the metaphysical, why are you able to identify God and the metaphysical by literally nothing else, if that's the case?
I think I understand what you're saying. I think what you're saying is the problem with my logic is that I'm trying to get a deduction of God being a necessary first cause, but that assumes that there had to be a first cause. And so because I'm just saying, instead of saying I don't know, which is what you believe is the proper answer, I'm prescribing a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. I say it's not a problem to say I don't know.
That problem may exist and it may not exist. I'm not sure. I'm not knowledgeable enough to make that determination. But I think either way, we lack, all of us collectively as humans, we lack justification to jump to a God. And I think people that do jump to a God either lack justification or they have not been able to properly explain it to others in like some type of syllogistic form, which there has been plenty of syllogisms made to discuss the existence of God, Kalam cosmological argument, teleological argument, and such. But each of those arguments have problems that we can poke holes in.
I believe the term for what I'm describing actually would fall in the cosmological argument, or the idea of a necessary first cause.
Yeah, because that's
my understanding of the
that's what we were thinking, and that's what we were seeing in the chat. The first premise is everything that which begins to exist has a cause, and right there, I don't see how you can conclusively declare that premise to be true, because we haven't observed literally everything in the universe. None of us were here to observe the Big Bang. I don't think we can declare that first premise to be true.
It's not just a matter of observation. It's a matter of like, I want to clarify because I get what you're saying, but just because someone's going to clip that, it's not a matter of being there and watching it. It's a matter of evidence. And we have this gap where like, we can't actually see past like the cosmic microwave background and like get a little bit more data there. So like, we're kind of relying on models and things, and all models are wrong, but some of them are useful.
Thanks for calling me on that, Forrest. Yeah, we weren't. So, hold on, Jackie. Thanks for calling me on that. We were not there to observe it, and we also have no mathematical model to work off of. We have no evidence that we can look at. Once you get close enough to t equals 0, we're not actually all the way to t equals 0 with our mathematics and physics. Once we hit a certain point, I think it's called the Planck time, it becomes a huge question mark because physics breaks down at that point. And maybe in that 0.0000001% of the universe's existence, that's where something can exist without a cause. Who knows? We can't make declarations about that. It's a big fat question mark.
Yep.
I was going to ask if you believe it's possible to be an agnostic theist.
Yes.
Yeah. That's agnostic is just the term to describe whether or not you know something. So some people use it just to mean on the fence, but the actual definition is just knowledge. And so you can be an agnostic atheist or an agnostic theist. Or you can be a Gnostic theist or a Gnostic atheist. But if you're an agnostic, you just say, I'm leaning this direction, but I don't actually know for sure. I'm pretty sure everybody on this show is an agnostic atheist. I'm willing to be proven wrong, but I have no reason to believe it.
I am an agnostic.
I've seen some of the lines. Shannon Q describes herself as more of a hard atheist.
Yes, Shannon Q does. Yes.
Yeah, that'd be a Gnostic atheist.
Yep.
But to kind of illustrate, I am an agnostic alienist. I believe aliens exist, but I don't claim to know aliens exist because I don't have enough evidence to elevate that belief to knowledge.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm saying you guys seem to not really. I understand what you're saying about we don't know, but you seem to be also dogging on agnostic theists, because agnostic theists also say we don't know. It's just they're proposing a model which they believe is more likely. But I don't know why you guys also, on top of dogging on Gnostic theists, also dog on agnostic theists.
Because if I tell you right now that I have an elephant behind my bookshelf here on the other side of this wall behind me, if I say there's an elephant there, you can say, yes, there is, no, there isn't, or I don't believe you. Yes, there is or no, there isn't requires evidence. Just saying I don't believe you doesn't require evidence. You're saying I'm waiting for you to give me the evidence. But if you're a agnostic elephantist and you're going to say, yeah, I believe the elephant's there, but I'm waiting to be for sure. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure it's there. That still requires a reason to believe it. That still requires some form of evidence. To say I don't know and I don't think you're telling me the truth, that is that's the null hypothesis in science. That's where you're starting from, the assumption that you are wrong and you don't know until proven otherwise. And when it's something like, if I bought a pizza last night, you can probably take my word for it. You don't need a tremendous amount of evidence. If you really want to check, you can check the receipt, you can check my trash, you can whatever. But like, if I tell you that I can fly or that there's a God, that's a really big claim. And that's something that you should require some actual positive evidence for, not just, well, here's this gap in my understanding and God fits in that gap. You need positive evidence for the elephant. You need positive evidence for flight. You need positive evidence for a God. You can't just say, I kind of don't know, but I'm going to go with it, because that's an illogical position to take.
And the way I approach those conversations, Jackie, is if I'm talking to a Gnostic theist, I see that as a person who is claiming that a God exists. If I'm talking to an agnostic theist, I'm usually think I'm dealing with a person who suspects a God exists, but they aren't jumping to the actual claim. And I'm going to approach both those conversations with different strategies and styles and stuff like that. I'll be a lot easier on the agnostic theist than I will be on the Gnostic theist.
Okay.
I have one more question before we wrap up, but I want to make sure you answer like what he just said, if you have something you wanted to say about it.
Yeah.
I'll think about it, but I think I plan on calling the show tomorrow to ask the astrophysicists more about the models. But ask your question and then.
Yeah. So my last question is, the opposite of the caveman analogy is, what if we did know? What if tomorrow there was a paper published in some great physics journal and we actually found out exactly how the universe started, every single bit of it? We knew now how matter and energy came into existence, and whatever magical, amazing way I don't have no idea. But we have now a complete, full, functional understanding of the Big Bang and how the universe came into being, and it doesn't have a God involved.
And the conclusion is not God?
Yes. Would you then be an atheist?
Yeah, I would probably lean towards atheism. I wouldn't be a Gnostic atheist, but yeah, I would probably be closer to agnostic atheism.
Okay, yeah. That's good. That's honest. That's why I asked, because sometimes we'll have people call in, and when presented with a scenario like that, like, no, because that means that God did the thing, and then it's just showing dishonest hypocrisy. I applaud you for being honest and saying, yeah, no, if I had different evidence, I would change my mind. But yeah, no, that's the whole thing, dude. Is I think the end of the conversation is like I think you're filling a hole with God in a way that you don't need to. I hope you call and talk to the physicist tomorrow, and I hope you think about it more, and I hope you call us back. We'd be happy to talk to you more.
Okay, and if I may ask, are there any guys on the line or any people on the line who are more philosophically minded? Because I've talked to atheists who are more, we'll say, objectivist. Like, do you know who Aron Ra is?
No.
Or Ayn Rand?
Paulogia. Okay, great. You say Ayn Rand?
Yeah. So
yeah, she's
yeah.
that kind of objectivism.
They have
Yes.
different.
I thought you meant something entirely different. Yeah, no, objectivist philosophy by Ayn Rand is hot trash. I agree with that. Yes, I'm not a fan of that whatsoever. And any atheist that purports to be an objectivist, I'm not a fan of.
Paulogia, you'd say, is the guy on. I know atheists with different philosophical schools, so you'd say Paulogia is the atheist person on the line who does know more about the philosophical schools.
Apparently. Yeah, that's what the producer's saying right now. Also, there's a guy named J Mike, who I know is real good at philosophy. And I think he's been on this channel before. He's also sometimes over on the atheist community of Austin's channels, like Talk Heathen and the Atheist Experience. So you can talk to him as well. He'd be good at it. But I believe Paul is the one over here that can talk to that a little bit better. But yeah, no,
I think
fuck objectivism for a lot of reasons. Sure. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I am a nihilist, and I profess that, and I teach about that, and a lot of people think that I'm an objectivist, and I don't get how you could draw that line. It's just dumb.
No, you're not an objectivist.
Anyway,
but
God no, absolutely not. Anyway, Jackie, it's been a fun call. I encourage you to look up people who explain why Jordan Peterson is wrong about most things. But I hope you call back, and I hope you call the other people and talk to them as well.
Okay.
Yep. Thanks, Jackie.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Kudos to Jackie, though, because I'm very jealous, actually, of Jackie, because he's contending with questions at the age of 16 that I wasn't even aware of their existence until I was in my late 20s. So definitely more of a head start in life than I ever had when dealing with these things. So I think it's great that Jackie's tackling these things now when Jackie could be surrounded by the school and the curriculum and has the time and energy to do those types of things. So it's great. Yeah, keep going.
I also want to point out to the person in the chat here who's calling our callers lazy and stupid, and that's all we let on the show and everything like that. I saw you ask when you could call in, and both I and several of the mods told you when to call and what number to call. You could have, if you think we let boring, stupid, lazy theists on the line and that you can prove God to us, you could have tried. You even asked how, and you didn't. I don't know what you want from me, dude. I'm on next week on Sunday and the following Monday for Skeptalk. That's the last two shows that I'm doing for the rest of the summer. So you have two chances. If you want to call me, you can call anybody. You can call this whole show. I don't care. But if you want to talk to me specifically, I would invite you to. This is my open invitation to you. If you think that you have the right answer and that all the theists that called on today are just stupid and lazy and so beneath you, give us an example of a good argument for God. I'm on Sunday and I'm on Monday. That's the 26th and the 27th of this month. Call me. Talk to me about it. I'd love to hear from you. Anyway, that's the end of the show, y'all. It is now, we're actually 20 minutes over time. I'm going to go away. Eric, do you have anything in particular you wanted to throw out there before we move on?
No, this was a delightful afternoon. I, like you, I was fresh out of bed. I was literally drinking my coffee when the stream started. So once the ball got rolling and the brain juices started flowing, it was great. This was a little bit excellent more afternoon, and I had a good time. Thanks a lot for being such a great host.
Thank you for being fucking awesome, dude. I love working with you. It's a lot of fun. And I am the same way. I think we talked about that beforehand. I rolled out of bed, took a shower, and got on the line. That's my day. So I'm going to go do the rest of my job now. Don't forget, everybody, we've got the preview of the podcast coming up right after the show. So don't hang up. Don't close the browser. Just wait until we go and then listen to 30 minutes of podcasty stuff. With that, my name is Forrest Valkai. I am Forrest Valkai. I forgot what I was trying to say. I'm really tired. I'm going to go away. I'm going to embarrass myself further. Thanks so much for calling the line, the show where you have a good night. Bye-bye.
What is the last thing you remember being wrong about? Might take a second to think of, but.
All right, let me think about that for a second. The last thing that I was wrong about. I mean, I get things wrong actually pretty frequently on stream, and I depend on my chatters to correct me, and then finally when I release it publicly, my editor goes through and fact checks things for me, make sure it's right.
Nice.
Trying to think for a second. You know what, when I wrote my book, I found the most innocuous like things that you take for granted, that you just assume that you hear, and you just, it's like, oh, everybody knows that. I found that some of that shit is fake, and you don't even realize.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting one. You probably know this one, but it wasn't Kool-Aid that Jonestown people drank. It was Flavor Aid. That's a little fun fact, and also, or a not so fun fact. And also, there's one that I got wrong recently. I heard that Barron Trump was going to be a Florida delegate for the Republican Party.
Right.
And that was announced. That was officially like reported in the news. But then it came out that I guess Melania Trump's, called it off and said, no, that's not happening. So I guess you could say I was kind of wrong about that one.
Yeah, that just sounds like the speed at which news got to you of a change wasn't fast enough before you talked about the pre-existing.
Right. That's why you got to take it slow, man. Don't jump the gun.
Yeah.
Take it nice and slow.
That's right. I love it. I constantly get geography stuff fucked up. That's like the easy one for me to do, because like somebody will say the name of a country and I'm like, and that is on which continent? And there's a couple of South American and African nations that I mix up. I guess the main one is Uruguay. I'm not always positive where Uruguay is.
Oh, that's in Africa, isn't it? Or
I think you're right, but now the problem is I've gotten it wrong so many times. Yes, it is in Africa. I've got wait, it's in South America. Uruguay's in South America, next to Argentina.
Is it really?
Yeah, below Paraguay. See,
fucking shit.
See, we've done it together. But it's one of those things now where I think I'll never know for sure because of the corrective nature of the past, being really embarrassed, to now even when I get it right, I doubt that I've gotten it right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's funny. Somebody was talking to me earlier. I think I saw it in some chat. It was a StarCraft 2 like general chat. And I don't usually engage in that shit because like whatever, I'm just here to play a game. But I saw somebody say South American immigrants, or they're in South America, they pay immigrants health care and they give them money. And I said, isn't South America a continent? And everybody was like, yeah, it's a continent. Like, how the fuck do you think they would be getting money from a continent?
Right.
Who is giving these people money? Anyway, people are so fucking stupid sometimes. It drives me nuts.
There are people who understand that the United States has its own government separate from Canada, understands that there's even a difference in state governments, but have no concept that South America has different countries, no concept of Africa having like closed off countries with non-open borders and plenty of places. Like,
right.
They have no concept of that. And yet it's funny how this is also like a perception of humans through time. So many people, except for the people from their time and their location, they just assume that for the rest of the world and the rest of time, everybody else is just walking around basically eating poop and not knowing how to build houses.
I know,
and
right?
stuff. Like not everybody, but so many people, this has come up on the channel a few times, think that like civilization started like 5,000 years ago. And you're like, you know that humans have survived, and obviously we're better than ever now as far as like medical understanding and stuff, but you do understand that like cavemen weren't eating poop except until somebody was able to tell them why not to, right? Like, you get that. And there was one guy we had on the phone was like, I guess I kind of did think that was how it was, that they were just walking around.
That's crazy. Well,
eating shit.
I always think to myself, are people really that fucking stupid? And then I remember, I don't know see, here's another thing. You don't know if it's true or if it's apocryphal, but I heard when I was younger that 6% of the U.S. thinks that chocolate milk comes from brown cows. That's something I should look up before I repeat it. But,
I looked that up recently.
It's like...
Yeah, and I think it's more than 6%. What percent of U.S. thinks chocolate milk comes from brown cows? Here we go. 7%. A survey from the Innovation of U.S. Dairy found that 7% of American adults think chocolate milk comes from brown cows. And if that percentage sounds small enough to be reasonable, hang on to your hat. 7% of Americans is 17.3 million people.
That is insane.
2017.
Like, I think to myself, like, these people can't be that fucking stupid, right? They're pretending, or they're lying about it, or they have an agenda. And then I remember that statistic and I'm like, no, they probably are that fucking stupid.
It's a bad world. We live in a bad world.
Yeah.
Before you became a skeptic, this is number 8. What was your silliest belief pre-skepticism?
Well, I've thought about this actually. Fascinatingly, I went back and I really thought about because I was a moderate. I was right in the center because I wasn't allowed to be involved in politics my whole life, being a Jehovah's Witness. So before being involved in politics to any degree, what filtered through to me was I believed that the Iraq War was justified and right, because we have a right to defend ourselves against terrorists, which is hilarious. Of course, Iraq wasn't the country that attacked us on 9/11. Let's see. I had a whole bunch of other interesting ones. Oh, I was actually pro-gay as a Jehovah's Witness. I thought people shouldn't like attack gay people just for being gay. So that's kind of interesting.
What about do you got any silly magical beliefs?
Oh, yes. Oh, my God. Yeah. My dad told me when I was little, and my mom told me this too about him, that he practiced black magic until one day he was like, he wakes up in the middle of the night, or I don't know, he's taking a nap or something. It was in the daytime. He wakes up and there's like this face laughing at him and he couldn't move. He was just frozen in place. And he tried to knock a Zippo lighter off of the table next to him, and it clattered down the wooden stairs where my mom was sitting, and she didn't hear it. And that's evidence that black magic is real, because up to that moment he'd spent his time practicing black magic, supposedly doing Jacob's ladder out of his arms where electricity shot between them and stuff. Obvious complete bullshit, right? But they were convinced that it was real, both my mom and my dad. And of course, they convinced me that it was real at 5 years old or something. It was sleep paralysis, clearly, right? Have you ever had sleep paralysis?
I have, yep. I've had it.
It's like an exact description.
And I had it as a Mormon as well as since being a Mormon. So you don't have to be in Satan's coffers to have it. But the right. Face thing is super common.
Yeah. I had it after leaving, and I don't really have it anymore. I've kind of found a way to pull myself out of it. But looking at art from the Renaissance era of sleep paralysis is actually fascinating. You ever looked at that shit?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've read a bunch.
Should I swear or no?
You can swear a lot for sure.
Oh, okay.
I think we were swearing right out of the gate. I think we swore in the first couple minutes.
Okay. You never know.
Yeah, I read up a bunch on it because there was a period of time where I was going through it quite often. Now I'll get it once every maybe a year and a half. It's not quite once a year, but I was having it monthly at the very least, mostly because of some medications that I was on to regulate anxiety. But that's what I think it was anyway. But yeah, it was interesting. And you see a lot of influence in art of the past, even just theological writings of the past. It's not unlikely that that's where some things from Dante's Inferno even came from.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I had sleep paralysis, and after discovering what that was, it was clear as day that that's what my dad was describing. I also believed that it was a bad idea, ill-advised, not against the rules, but not a good idea to go to yard sales and just buy random shit, because you never know what that person does in the privacy of their own home. They could be, imbuing that thing with demons or whatever the fuck you want to call it. And now we've got a demonic, Super Nintendo game that's going to possess me or some shit.
Which is hilarious.
We could only really... It is. We could only go to yard sales of other Jehovah's Witnesses largely. Every now and then we'd go to another though.
But like and if you own anything, what do you have that was never in the possession of someone else or in the ground amongst the demons? Like,
right?
That's, unless you're chopping your own trees and building your own furniture. And even then, who touched that tree?
Yes, absolutely. It's dumb as dog shit, like all of it, the entire belief system. But, that's what you believe. You buy that shit when you're in the religion or in any religion. Like you fall for so much stuff because, I don't know, we're like prone to superstition or something. I don't know what it is.
Something. Yep. That is for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Here's question number 9. This one's a little bit on a personal note because I'm working on, I'm starting some projects up and I'm going to be doing some docu-series, I think, in this realm. Have you tried virtual reality? If so, what are your thoughts on it? When was the last time you tried it?
I think I put a headset on at a store once, but I've never gone beyond that. And when I saw it, I was very, very impressed by it. I thought that I was surprised that this isn't like already more widespread. Also, augmented reality, AR stuff like that overlays. I'm surprised that isn't like all over the place already. Also,
it's getting there.
But again, I don't own any of it.
The hard part with AR is that to do it well actually does require quite a bit more technology. So the only headset right now that is good enough to walk around everywhere, nobody will do because it looks silly. The Apple Vision Pro is the only one that really can pull off great AR. Now, there's fun AR stuff to do in like the Meta Quest 3, but the difference in the quality of the pass-through is a lot. So like when you put on an Apple Vision Pro, it's so well scaled and the pass-through is so good that it looks more like you've put on something that you're seeing through and maybe the colors become muted and it's a little bit blurry. But it's not, when you put on like any other headset, I'm clearly looking at screens through cameras. And so
interesting.
And the Vision Pro starts at $3,500, so it's not accessible either.
God. And that's the Apple one, right?
Yeah.
Vision Pro.
Yeah, I finally got to give that thing a shot recently. It is incredible. Totally different use case than the other virtual reality headsets. They're all mostly focused on like gaming and experiences, where Apple Vision Pro is trying to do what you're talking about, put computing in your space, have as many monitors as you want. I'll tell you, 3D movies look better in the Apple Vision Pro that nothing else is a close second. Going to a movie theater and IMAX with the glasses is not even a close second. 3D movies I
would love to have VR stuff. That sounds awesome.
Well, I'm sure we'll talk about it more as I work on these projects, but for everybody now, my recommendation, if they've got a little bit like a console level budget, is get a Quest 3, because the Quest 3 is $500. You don't need a single thing more than that, though usually most people who do it a lot will upgrade the headband that holds it on. The one that comes with it sort of sucks, but
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, all the VR I need is in my Virtual Boy. I'm good with that.
You're going to use a virtual, man. I want, at some point I want to have like all of I've stopped selling my headsets when I'm done with them, because I want to have kind of like you like having on display all of your history of video games. I want to have a full history of VR things. In fact, I've got to figure out, I'd given some stuff to a brother and I'm sure he's not using it anymore. I got to see if I can get my original Oculus Quest back, my original, or Oculus Rift back, and my original Rift. Anyway, nobody will care about this. They'll be like, all right, move on to the next things. I think virtual reality and augmented reality are the future. It's all right now. It's form factor. If they could put what the Apple Vision Pro currently is, not advance the technology except for adding new apps, but just what its current level of technology is in a pair of what looks like closer to normal glasses, everyone would be wearing it. It would replace smartphones. It would replace everything. So right now, form factor.
I completely agree. I have not actually used it to, not very much, almost not at all, but the little bit that I know about it, a little bit I've seen, totally agree. I think it's the future.
It's bananas. By the way, if you ever decide you want to try it out again, reach out to me because I might want to film you trying modern stuff. For
that's cool.
Things.
Do you have the Apple one or no?
I'll talk to you about the project off air because I don't want to spoil anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But sounds obviously good. I've tried one and have access to one. But yeah. All right. So number 9 or number 10. This is a very deep question. Owen, are you okay?
Mm-hmm. Am I okay?
Yeah.
Yes, I am okay.
I feel like that's the way most people respond. They're like, why are you asking? I just wondered if anybody has in a while.
Is there some trick to this?
Nah.
Well, I mean, I live in Manhattan. I'm not rich by any stretch of the imagination. People would be surprised. Like, there are actually some inexpensive places to live in Manhattan. Not the best places to live, but they're here.
Sure.
So anyway, I live in Manhattan, and my wife is almost done with law school, got one more semester. My kid is enjoying high school. So yeah, things are going pretty good. Also, I love my job. I love editing. I love doing all this stuff. It's fun, you know?
Question number 11 is probably the most important, and this is the final question. Then we do the quiz, and then the show is complete. Well, usually obviously you'll say, you can remind people where to find you if you want to plug your book or anything. Then I'll read without you, unless you decide you want to stick around. Without you, I read the comments from the previous show on Patreon. But this is number 11. This is the final question. It's a very important question, and it's going to tell us a lot about you. What would you name a cat with markings around their eye that looked like a monocle?
Oh God. Oh God, I'm so bad. I feel like there's some really funny joke in here, but I can't think of it. I think I would call the cat Kittykins, I guess. Kind of like Watson or something. Like Watson? I guess like a butler.
Okay, I like that one.
A butler that wears a monocle, you know, Kittykins.
I like that one.
Kittykins in. I think that'd be okay. Yeah.
We've had 2 people so far answer that they would want to reference the Monopoly Man in some way, only for me to reveal to them that that's a Mandela effect thing. While there are a couple of chance cards from history where he is featured, what most people are visualizing him on the box, all that kind of stuff, he in fact does not have a monocle.
That's true. I know. I mean, as a retro collector, of course, I've gone down this rabbit hole pretty heavily. Nice. I don't have any Mandela effect things that are like intense, except for Shazam with Shaq. I remember that movie, you know, with Shaq as a genie, whatever. I straight up remember that.
And
real.
What is the Mandela effect? Does that movie not actually exist?
No, it's fake. Apparently, never happened.
Interesting.
Do you remember that too?
I remember. Well, I remember Kazam, which is a movie
with Shaq. Right?
Yes,
it is
as a genie. But you're saying you remember him being called Shazam?
Yeah, and it's Sinbad that played the role.
Oh, I'm not familiar with that at all.
That?
No. Yeah, that never made it to me. Shazam.
Well,
Sinbad.
as a joke, Sinbad dressed up as a genie and did this whole promo not too long ago just because of the Mandela effect, and he wanted to fuck with people.
Interesting.
He did actually dress up as a genie in an old TV show in the 90s for a skit at one point, but it was like a 1-episode type of deal. And that's probably where all of the Mandela effect stuff comes from. They saw a commercial for it, and then they mixed up that commercial for it with Kazam, and
I see. Okay,
that's where it came from.
I wasn't aware of. I thought you were telling me that the movie Kazam did not really exist, and I was starting to freak out because I was like, I remember scenes. What?
Yeah.
I was
right.
I was getting worried. All right, cool. Well, I sent you the link. Do you want to pull that up? Do you want to pick out a design we'll send to?
Yeah, let me take a look here.
I've had ChatGPT pick. You're going to be playing on behalf of Bob. Bob, your email address, if you're listening, starts with a G and is a Yahoo email address, so that'll help to the but I'll message it to you either way. Your consolation prize.
All right, so I get to pick any item here, right?
Yep. Yep.
All right, let me see. I'm just looking through here. I gotta find the best thing. Do
you like the new one?
We got coffee mugs.
Do you like the with the emoji on it? Do you get it? That's our newest one.
I don't get that one. What is it?
So to me, that's the demon emoji, and we keep getting demonetized, so it's demon. Yeah.
Okay, demonetized. Okay, that makes sense. I got it. Yeah, I just have to sit there and think about it for a second, but I guess that's kind of the point, right?
Yeah. I hope.
Interesting. Okay, well, let's see.
A little bit of a double play too.
I'm a big fan of coffee mugs.
Okay.
Although like the shirts and the hoodies and stuff, some people may like those better, but personally I use coffee mugs every day, and I would like to think that other people probably use coffee mugs a lot too. So
cool.
I'm gonna say the coffee mug. Yeah.
Which one?
In fact, the black one. Black and white one. Unafraid to disappoint, daddy, magical or otherwise. I like that.
Hell yeah. Good. Awesome. All right. That's the Bob. We're going to send you the tall one. Last time we did 2 of the smalls, I think. We're going to send you a link to get the bigger mug. It might actually just offer it either one. So, but we're going to send you one mug. You can pick the tall one. And that's what we're going to be playing for today. 15 ounces. I was trying to open it up to see what it is. So we are, and if you do not win, there's a consolation prize we'll give you a $10. Is it constellate? No, it's consolation. Like you're consoling
consolation. Yeah, consolation.
We'll send you $10 to the merch store if we don't get it. But I will say there's a few news things. There's a Nintendo trivia thing in here. There's a fallacy thing in here. I think you're going to do just fine, but we'll find out.
Nintendo trivia.
Yeah, that's right.
I will smash the shit out of that. I would be willing to bet.
You'll probably be disappointed at how easy it is then, because in reality, we hope you win. We want to do the giveaway, so we don't make it terribly hard. But the current event stuff is probably the hardest stuff, because it's a matter of if you read the news from time to time and general news.
Okay, well, as far as Nintendo stuff goes, I don't know if anybody is aware, but I have a game collection, and I am a Nintendo fanatic. I have every console from 1987 onward, not just Nintendo, but like Genesis and 32X, Super Nintendo, GameCube, all of it. So I love this stuff.
Do you watch when like Linus Tech Tips does their updates on like, hey, here's the newest TV that can actually pull off good looking console gaming, stuff like that?
I didn't realize they had that kind of thing. The thing about CRTs is they're analog effectively.
Right.
And so they're so instantaneous that it's very hard to replicate on a modern TV. I guess they've done it, but it's really, really difficult. And a lot of the games, like Battletoads, for example, you can't play or win Battletoads without a CRT or something approximating a CRT. It's impossible, literally impossible, because it's too fast.
I'll have to find for you. It was something within the last year, but there's a TV that came out, and there's 2 things. There's a TV that came out, and then this little like almost blow up projector TV. I don't remember what it was called. But there's one where you could blow up this thing and project inside it, and it would get you the same stuff. And then there's a new TV that has the ability to be like a regular TV, but also has a special technology in gaming mode that actually can do like, and maybe it's
duck hunt and stuff.
It might be RetroTink 4K video upscaler, but that's not the TV. Maybe it was a thing. I don't know. I can't think of it off the top of my head. But anyway,
FrameMeister is commonly the upscaler that people use, but I think they're either out of. I don't think people are making it anymore, and I think it's also really expensive. I just have a CRT, and by the way, all the CRTs that exist today are all the CRTs that will ever exist, because we don't produce the parts anymore to make CRTs. So if you have one, hold on to it.
Yeah. Unless somebody figures out how to make them cheaper and in their homes instead of needing a factory, but that's probably unlikely.
Yes. Yeah, they don't make the parts for it anymore. The cathode ray tube, electron guns in the back. They just don't make those parts anymore.
Word. All right, well, cool. Here we go. This is question number 1 from the trivia, playing for Bob for a Unafraid of Daddy mug. This week, a 50-foot yacht sank in the Strait of Gibraltar after an encounter with what? Was it A, a pod of orcas which rammed it, B, a rock formation which had been covered by high tides, C, acidic algae that ate away the hull, or D, your mom?
Oh, man. I don't actually know. I'm going to go with C because I know that there's algae that's acidic and causing problems right now. Is it C?
It is not C, I'm afraid. Hang on, let me see if I've got a disappointing sound here. We'll do a record scratch.
Okay. There you go.
The correct answer, and this has actually been happening, this is a developing thing that's happening more and more. It was a pod of orcas which rammed it.
Damn, that was my second choice.
Yeah, that's happening more and more. Orcas are sinking yachts in parts of the ocean. Well,
good for them. Fuck yacht owners.
Yeah, fuck yacht owners. Oh man, I could not. Zuckerberg got a new yacht recently, and it made me want to eat him. I was like, damn.
Right? One day we'll get our opportunity.
Let's do. I'll go to the Nintendo one, just for a little refresh. In Super Mario Brothers 3, which item allows Mario to fly after running at full speed?
Oh no, then that's the raccoon tail.
You're gonna want to hear
the leaf. It's a leaf.
Yeah. So there's the choices are super feather, super leaf. That would be B. C is frog suit, or D, sciatica.
Yeah, it's the leaf. Sorry, I jumped the gun on that one. I know this shit like the back of my hand.
You were kind of right with your first guess, because in Mario 3 you can get a Tanuki suit, which is the raccoon suit I think you're referring to, that has the ability to fly. But of the ones, the B was correct. Yeah. Air horn.
The raccoon tail is what you get when you get a leaf. The Tanuki suit is apparently a mythical creature in Japan. It's kind of like a bear. And the P-Wing is a special item that gives you the ability to fly. Like your run speed never drops off for the entire level. So
Super Mario 3 is probably my favorite Mario. But this is we'll give you this sound for getting it right.
Okay.
There you go.
I've got that too. I got those sounds.
Nice. Are you on the same board as me? Road Procaster?
Yeah. I took your recommendation.
I fucking love this. I'm not even on a computer. I'm recording this literally directly into the board. I don't bother hooking up a PC for the podcast. I love it.
That's cool. Yeah, it's the shit.
All right, here's question number 3. Why are several major airlines suing the Biden administration? Is it A, a new law requiring them to more deeply clean plane interiors? B, a new rule forcing them to disclose airline fees up front? C, new policy requiring pilots to face sobriety checks? Or D, Lauren Boebert is not yet on the no-fly list, and they are suing because they would like her to be?
I think it's B. It was the fees thing. I remember hearing about this. Got it.
Hell yeah. That's right. They are very upset that they might have to disclose up front, and that if they give you a price, that would have to be the price they honor, and they aren't allowed to add the fees after the price. Now, if we could only add that to like hotel bookings, that would be wonderful.
Man, you want to hear some shit? It's kind of on subject. Just take me a second. But there's like when they were trying to forgive student loan debt, the companies, I guess the government kind of sells the debt to another company so that it, kind of gives the debt out. And when Biden forgave it, which is, the president's right to do, the companies sued because they were being made whole. The government was paying them for the loans,
right?
But they were not making money off of the interest that they would make by people not paying the loans or taking too long to pay. So they were suing the Biden administration because they weren't allowed to fuck people over anymore, and they wanted to. That's literally the wild problem. Shit.
They were literally the problem, and they were suing because they felt they had the right to be charlatans.
The problem. Yep.
All right. Here's let's see. We've We've got 2 left. I'll give you another. I'll give you another that I feel you living in New York, you should know this one.
Okay.
Which famous actor was recently punched in the face in a seemingly random attack in New York City? Was it A, Burt Reynolds, B, Tom Cruise, C, Steve Buscemi, or D, my mom?
I don't actually know. I didn't hear about this shit.
Oh my goodness.
I'm gonna guess.
This week.
I'm gonna say wait, I'm gonna say who can you tell me who it was again? What was the first one?
A is Burt Reynolds, B was Tom Cruise, C was Steve Buscemi, D was my mom.
I'm going with okay. Well, she is a celebrity in some circles.
I want you to win, so I'm just going to give you a hint. Remember, New York City is the place we're talking about.
Okay. I'm going to go with